2019 Franklin Township Board of Supervisors meeting in order at 7:02. In attendance are Supervisors Morris, Schneider, Torres. Also in attendance are Solicitor Mark Thompson, Township Engineer Pete Eisenbrown, and Township Engineer Glenn Telaszewski. Telcheski, okay. Harbor Historical Commission Chairman Paul Lagasse. Township Manager Joe McVaugh, Assistant Township Manager Jeff Eastburn, and Secretary Sharon Norris. We have Shane Morgan here from the White Clay Wild and Scenic Organization. And there are approximately 5 members of the public here tonight.
6.
6? Okay.
6.
I don't want to make a mistake like that. All right, all rise for the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, we're at the public comment section.
You missed the announcement.
Oh, I'm sorry. Announcement, there will be an executive session after tonight's meeting to discuss some legal issues. Public comment is for anything related to the items on tonight's agenda. The last public comment is for items not on the agenda. It's important you state your name clearly for the tape so the comments can be reflected accurately. Please state whether you're a township resident or a township taxpayer. Since we have such a small group here, we'll take comments in the meeting. So if there's an issue that you're interested in, we'll discuss it first and then we'll take comments. If you want to wait till the end or do it at the beginning. So, okay, let me just start the first one. I make a motion to approve the January 16th, 2019 meetings version 3 as presented by the Township Secretary.
I'll second.
Seconded by Nancy. Questions, comments, errors, clarifications?
Good.
Hearing none. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed nay. Motion carries 4-0.
I make a motion that the Board of Supervisors adopt Resolution 2019-06 regarding the disposition of records for the Board of Supervisors meeting of January 16 and the November 1, 2018 PC meeting. Is there a second?
Second, I'll second it.
Any discussion? Any questions about that? Everybody understand?
Just for
Well,
everybody,
get rid of
it allows us to erase the audio tape from the previous meeting, because then those comments have been transcribed into written comments, which we're doing right now, so that tape can be erased. We do maintain the videotape, more or less indefinitely. Okay.
Okay. Any other discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say nay. Motion carries 4-0.
All right. Make a motion that the board approve the January treasurer's report, which includes the following disbursements. The general fund with disbursements and transfers of $115,597.16. Parks and Recreation Fund with disbursements of $2,598.84. The Open Space Fund with disbursements of $96,768.42. Capital Reserve Fund with disbursements of $9,739.46. And the Fire Hydrant Fund with disbursements of $580.80, leaving a balance in all funds totaling $620,967.89. Second.
I'll second that.
Second by David. Any discussion?
No? I've got no comments.
Okay. All right, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed say nay. Motion carries 4-0.
The January zoning officers report, motion required, there were 6 permits issued, 24 building inspections, $1,095.12 in building fees that we collected. We did not collect any monies in recreation open space or the impact fee. And in terms of miscellaneous fees collected, we collected $1,100. There were 4 zoning issues reported. One was around the use of a property for a paving business without permits, and that one the owner has applied for a variance. One about a historic home with a leaking roof. That is going to require further discussion with the owner. New London Road, utility trucks which do not require CDL are being operated from the property. The owner has been informed of deficiencies and violations and has been notified to apply for a revised conditional use hearing. And 206 Fox Run, deteriorated structure in high grass and safety. It has been listed for sale and there have been numerous inquiries.
Would you like updates on any of those?
You
I
know,
would.
more?
Yeah, I mean, since this was written, we have 2 changes. The zoning hearing board for the first one, 1651 New London Road, the zoning hearing board has been scheduled for March 12th. 3327 Appleton Road, there's a hearing in the Court of Common Pleas on March 12th for, he's contesting the fees that were assessed at an earlier hearing. And we also have a hearing in district court that had to be rescheduled, and Jeff Ogles is working on that. 1620 New London Road, the applicant has filed a new conditional use application. Jeff Ogles is working with the applicant on that. And 206 Fox Run, that property has been sold.
It didn't take long.
Yeah, so hopefully it'll be rebuilt. And one of the neighbors, Beth Diamond, who has come in several times during the several years that this property has been in the condition it's in, asking us how things were going. And she came in to thank us after it was sold for all, all the effort that was put into it. She said she wanted to make sure that we got a compliment.
All right, very good. All right.
That's it.
Let's see, the planning commission met on February 7th, 2019, and discussed the Walker lot line change, and that's on tonight's agenda. We also have Brent Van Leaf, planning commission member, and he would like to give a report.
We met on February 7th, and after a call to order, we held the organization of the planning commission. So Dave was nominated and re-elected as the chairman. Mark was the only member that was not present for the meeting, and he was nominated and elected as vice chairman. And John was nominated and re-elected as secretary, and those are all the positions that were held by the same people, so there's been no change. We approved the November 1st meeting minutes, and then we discussed the Walker-Wilkinson lot line change. And the only concern that we really had was that it appeared that there may have been more impervious area than what was shown on the plan that the owner showed. And in the owner's interest to show all the impervious area that they have, is important if they come up with another plan. So we wanted to make sure that they, had the chance to include all the impervious area that they really do have out there, so that if they do make a change later on, it's already been counted as existing. So we did. We recommended to the Board of Supervisors to approve the plan as shown, with waivers A through G, and have this condition on the applicant, including all the impervious areas in calculation. And that was there was no public comment, and that was the end of the meeting.
Right, I did attend that meeting. It's a pretty simple lot line change. Really complicated other than the impervious surface discussion. So. Okay. Let's see, the Harv and the Historic Commission. Pardon? Oh, go ahead.
No, I thought you were hesitating there, Carmen, the HC, Historical
I
Commission.
emailed you that 2 minutes too.
Harb and HC did not meet in February. Is there any comments you'd like to make, Paul?
Yeah, I would like to bring two items to the attention of the supervisors. One concerns the ongoing historical review of properties along 896. We have been unsuccessful in seeking reconsideration of a number of properties that have been deemed not eligible for the National Register. I think for people who are attending here, that means basically that those properties have a lower standing should they wish to challenge aspects of the PennDOT plans with respect to the improvements of the plan for 96. And so that includes Dave Galvin's property, Tom Harrow, and it includes 100 Peacedale, which is the Lawrence property, which is right across from the church. However, the Pennsylvania Historical Museum Commission rejected two assessments by PennDOT's historical reviewers for two properties, which are 1668 New London Road and 1881 New London Road. Those are known in our historic surveys as the Rubicane Farm and the Joseph Pierce Farm. One is presently owned by the Noltes, and it's down here below the village, the Big Victoria. And the other is owned by Green Houses, and it's next to Walnut Lane Road, kind of. And those were deemed to be eligible for the National Register as intact farmsteads. So that was a pleasant surprise. We hadn't been particularly worried about either property because they're not terribly close to the road. And there were issues that could be seen as justifying the initial assessments that were eligible, but I was happy to see that they were deemed eligible. And then we have a couple talks coming up in March. The Oxford Area Historical Association is going to have a talk on March 5th at 7 p.m. at the Oxford Masonic Lodge on Evan Pugh's Penn State. And it's going to be about the early years of Penn State. And then on March 14th at the New London Area Historical Society, we're going to have a talk on how to use your smartphone to do family oral histories. And it's going to be a very detailed how-to, so that people who want to do that sort of thing, have family conversations, record them, preserve them, and share them, will be able to leave there, whether they have an iPhone or an Android, knowing how to use a couple free programs in order to do that. And that will be, as I said, March 14th.
Let's see, recently I've been doing some knocking on doors, talking to people, and a couple of people expressed some interest in the talks you're talking about, the start talks. So I was wondering if we could get those posted on our website. So
They usually are posted.
are they posted?
Yeah.
So make sure, because
They're posted on the website, and we have an email list, and there's a mailing list.
I didn't want to point them there unless they were there. That's
No,
what I-
and they can also go to the Historical Commission's Facebook page.
Okay.
They're there as well. So
Okay.
there's information out there. It's just, it's a matter of finding it. There are a couple different ways of finding out.
Okay.
So the next item is Jim German of the Franklin Sportsman Association will present the final FSA report of this season. Apparently.
As you noted, this will be the final report covering the 2018 deer hunting season. I think it was a very successful season for the club. Total season, we harvested 20 deer between the three preserves. We get our most total before was 15, so we did exceed it quite well. Not a lot going on because of the weather, the cold, the rain, and even more rain. But coming up on March 9th at 9 o'clock in the morning, we will have the first quarter road cleanup over on Chesterville and Creek Roads. than that, we don't have any other projects on the books right now. I know Bob will be reaching out to Jeff to see what may be popping up here once the weather starts turning some,
Okay.
to line some things. But right now, with the road cleanups and everything, we have planned, and again, total service hours for the year, 124, and that's from July through today. And then just off the FSA, we'd just like to thank the supervisors for allowing us the opportunity to, through 2018, to own those preserves. And second, FSA is just asking that the Board of Supervisors consider a resolution in one of the future meetings that again would grant us the ability to own the preserves in the hunting season 2019.
Jim, it's 124 hours, is that generally about average or
I think that's
roughly?
up from what we had before. I haven't compared last year to this year. But
The year doesn't end until July 1st, so
Yeah, so we
people
can-
will be still doing service projects up until June 30th of this year.
but I know usually we're 80 plus, so.
Service projects provide the township some significant economic relief. These hours would be typically done by one of the contractors. And most of that work they don't like to do anyway, so we certainly appreciate the FSA doing that work. And the projects are valuable. We've had one this year was notable and visible. Some significant vandalism damage was done down at the park on the pavilions. Guys really made a mess down there, and the FSA got in there in 2 or 3 days and really did a first-class job cleaning it up. So we got some good coverage in the Chester County Press with pictures and descriptions of it, so not the only thing they do by any means, but it was one that was fairly visible and people appreciated it.
And just one other point, we'll be having our monthly meeting tomorrow night up here in the Township Hall. I'm not sure if the signs along Franklin to the back end of the park have been taken down yet, but if they haven't, we'll make sure that's coordinated tomorrow night. Get them down in the next 2 weeks or so, they've been taken down.
Pretty wet out there. I was walking around yesterday and it was, ground's frozen with about a half an inch of slippery mud on top of it, so step off the road and be careful. Your road cleanup, what road were you going to work on?
Chesterville Creek.
Chesterville Street. Just for the township staff's information, I did see a sign today, New London has scheduled their road cleanup, I think it's the 13th of April. So there's a big sign up there right in New London. You want to verify that date. Let's see if we don't step over them this year. We ended up picking the same day that they did. So
That's the Great American Cleanup.
yeah, they have the same thing
Birthday.
that we have, but if we could avoid conflicting with them, that would be good. Yes, Paul?
Usually it gives detail how many deer came from each preserve. Do you have any numbers on that, Jim?
Yep,
They have,
We had- we had-
in the report.
11 deer from Franklin, 5 from White Clay, and 4 from Bashar.
Oh, yeah, there it is, right there, it's on the report.
And one more,
Yeah.
if you're looking for projects, may I suggest, as I do every year, that there's many trees down in Bamshire on the trails, and I think the hunters would be interested in clearing those trails for their own use, if not everyone else's. It's chainsaw work.
Okay.
And then, as our Bamshire management plan calls for, that Natural Lands Trust wrote for us, cutting invasive vines off the mature trees, because they're tearing down the canopy, breaking branches off the mature trees. So all the invasive vines need to be cut every year. I do a lot of it myself, but if
Yeah,
you
I
get
know.
guys out there, that would be, I think, much more helpful than the road cleanup, or in addition to the road cleanup. It
Some
also
of the vines,
benefits the
are all the vines invasive, because some of them are not, so I don't,
So the wild grape is not, but as instructed, when it's so large that it's taking down a mature tree, it's time to cut it.
I mean, I've had to use chainsaws on some,
Right.
they're just
It's a
ridiculous.
chainsaw job.
Yeah.
So the tree is more valuable than the vine, is the way you look at it.
Okay, all right, so take the vines off then.
Yep.
Are there any areas in there more heavily involved with?
Start in east and go west.
I don't go in there too
About
much.
10 years worth of cutting.
Is it advisable to spray after you cut the vine with a herbicide?
That's correct. That's what Natural Lands Trust recommend. You have a little squirt bottle of Roundup and just hit the vine when you cut it, but it's not required. If the vine's heavy enough and you cut it low enough, it'll die. But you need an air gap. So don't just cut the vine, you have to cut it in two places, ground level and 6 feet up, so the vine doesn't try to grab the old part and continue to grow.
Can really do that.
If you make an air gap, it can't reach it and then it'll die in the shade.
All right, well, thank you for that, we appreciate that. All right, let's see, where are
So, business, taking that one?
Yeah, Walker Wilkinson, Martin Bottomline. Let's go ahead and read the motion.
we at? Yeah, I think you want to read, I think this thing's pretty straightforward. I've already signed it for me, so. Anybody wants to?
Stefan's turn.
I'll make it, okay. I make a motion that the board, I make a motion that based on the recommendation of the planning commission, the board of supervisors approve the final minor subdivision plan for lots 7 and 15 of the Real subdivision dated December 27, 2019, last revised February 11, 2019, with the following waivers from this SALDO. A, section 22-202, with respect to the definition of a minor subdivision, to allow this plan to be processed as a minor subdivision plan. B, section 22-502.L.14, which requires the location of all existing wells and sewage drainage fields within 100 feet of the property boundary. C, section 22-502.M.1, which requires existing contour lines as vertical intervals of T feet established by a topographic survey. D, section 22-502.M.5, which requires slopes from 15% to 25% and slopes in excess of 25% to be highlighted. E, section 22-502.M.8, which requires the delineation of all non-tidal wetlands by field survey. F, section 22-502.L2, and section 22-717.1.b, which requires survey monuments along the original track and the street right-of-way lines. G, section 22-722.11d, which requires the delineation and testing of both primary and replacement sewer systems.
I'll second that.
Seconded by David. Discussion?
I have a question about the date in the
18?
in the motion itself, because it says the plan is dated December 27, 2019.
Should be 18.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I just have a quick question. The LTL recommendation, it has a couple of items that are under the heading conformance with the zoning ordinance. Did the planning commission look through those and make sure they're covered?
Yeah, I don't think we discussed them, but we went through them.
You addressed the waivers.
So one is the plan should list the current number of horses on parcel 72.62.2. The other is parcel 72.6.2.2 is being reduced in size. The plan will use to list the amount of existing building and lot coverage compared to the maximum allowed for section 27.4.
Are you talking about the original thing that went to the PC?
It's January 28th, it's LTL's like,
The PC is that, I'm sorry, Nancy, is that the one that deals with the horses?
yes,
Okay, the
and
PC,
something
the
else.
PC decided that wasn't relevant.
Okay, and what about the amount of existing building and lot coverage compared to the maximum?
That's what they asked about the impervious cover be added to the plan, and it has been added. The
Okay.
amount of that has been added.
All right.
Yeah, it was advantageous for the property owner to record all the impervious surface.
They weren't going to be close to the maximum coverage, but the reason we talked to them about it so much and why we encouraged them was because when you memorialize how much impervious area you have, then it doesn't count against you if you come back later with a different plan. So it was for their own benefit to do that.
Okay. That's great, thank you.
Any other discussion?
I have to assume that the numbers that you had there, without seeing it measured up, I have to assume that they were well thought out and engineered. The 15 to 25% slopes being, and slopes in excess of 25% be highlighted and all that stuff, that's all measured out.
Well, all of those things were waivers because it didn't, that's what you're talking about right now, is the waiver. Well, they're not doing any land development. So when you're doing land development, you're moving dirt around, you're doing things like that, knowing where your steep slopes are, helps you engineer the site better, but they're not, there's no actual development going on, it's just a simple lot line moving. So a lot of those things don't really coincide with just a lot line moving. They're a little more important when you're doing an actual development.
Okay,
The steep slopes are there, and you're not moving any dirt or building.
you're just describing what's there, basically.
Yeah, what's there is what's there, and that nothing's moving and nothing's being disturbed, so it's not really an issue. It is what it is.
Okay, thanks.
Okay. Any other discussion?
Yeah,
Okay.
I'm good.
Okay. All right, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed say nay. Motion carries 4-0.
Congratulations, thank you.
very much. I would also like to thank the planning committee and the board of supervisors, but especially the staff here in the township, because everyone's been incredibly helpful from the get-go in October when you helped me with Chester County sewage, and Sharon, of course, and Joan, with all the details and everything. And all. But anyway, I just want to say that we have an outstanding staff here at Township, and I very much appreciate their help.
Thank you very much, thank you so much.
We feel the same.
The planning commission was really looking out for your own best interests there.
Yes, we all need stormwater. Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you so much.
Shane Morgan.
All right, we have Shane Morgan joining us. I think I was here last year when you
I
spoke.
couldn't remember when I was here last year, but you were there.
So, it's the Catch the Rain program.
Yeah, so just real quick, Catch the Rain is a voluntary stormwater project implementation program that's run by the White Clay Watershed Association. So we offer rebates to homeowners who voluntarily implement stormwater practices. So it kind of goes a little bit with everything we've been talking about tonight, impervious cover, and trying to collect the runoff from that. The program was started in 2016, late 2016, and we're still going. So I wanted to give you guys an update on the progress. I think I was a little excited, and I sent Joan an email because I wanted to thank her because you guys have been putting the program on your website, and it must be getting traction. We are a very small watershed association, one part-time staff, me, and there's a lot of other stuff going on. But this is something that we thought was important and could help municipalities out with some of their stormwater issues in an area where you don't really necessarily have jurisdiction over the private lands and what people are doing on their land. So I wanted to give you an update, and I do have handouts. Since 2016, and it says 50 on here, but I had 2 more applicants today because of an article that went out in the Chester County Press about the program. But if you look at the pie chart here, you can
Which
see-
pie chart?
Oh, there's a lot. I know, I had fun, all right? I don't have enough for everyone, so, okay, I'm giving you guys one too. Okay, but what I wanted to point out was that Franklin Township, out of all the municipalities in the White Clay watershed, had one of the largest participation rates, so it's the orange one. So 24% of the applicants came from Franklin, which I thought was pretty cool. Large landowners, I wasn't really expecting that, but I thought it'd be more smaller residential neighborhoods, but it turns out there's a lot of large landowners that are into the environment and want to do something good. The other thing I wanted to show you is, so we've had some practices implemented. If you turn the page, there's a table here. It goes through year to year. We had 12 applicants and 13 applicants. Last year we had 23, so it doubled. So that's exciting. And then this year we've had 4, because you have to add 2 to that. But most of the things that have been implemented have been easier things like rain barrels and planting trees, which is great. Trees are great for the environment. But this year we have a bunch of pending projects, and a couple of them are in Franklin, and some of them are rain gardens, which you guys have out here, your rain garden that the Boy Scouts helped build. But one thing that has been kind of exciting through the program I wanted to share with you, because it could help out with some of your more planned communities in the township as well. We've expanded the program to kind of look at HOA lands, like protected HOA lands, because lots of times they're neglected and they have those invasive vines climbing up in the natural areas and destroying the trees. So we do have a tree planting, a buffer planting that we partner with Brandywine Conservancy on, and we're able to get grants on for all the trees because it's on protected land. And the HOA agreed to do it and do some invasive species treatment, which they paid for prior to the planting. The planting is happening in May. It's planned for May 20th. Now this one is in London Grove. It's in London Grove. But through the program, we also, and this is kind of neat too, I had a landowner reach out to me. That's this page. This is in Franklin Township. And he has part of the middle branch going through his property. Well, it turns out, when I met him, it was conserved land that he's on, and he needs a buffer, and he's interested. So I met with him in Brandywine Conservancy after our first visit, and Brandywine Conservancy is still working on the plan for him. So hopefully this will move forward. But I was excited, and that was when I sent Joan the email, because I was thinking, well, this is something that could definitely help the township bigger than just putting in a rain garden, although every little thing counts. So I just kind of wanted to share with you some of the things that are happening and hopefully will be happening with the program, so that you are aware of it in case you ever had homeowners come in and ask you questions, or HOAs with private lands that maybe want to do something more. So,
How are you communicating this thing out to the community from your organization? Because we're doing some things here, and
It's on our
it's on our
website.
website, so.
and there's another man who is from Franklin, because I keep getting people telling me that it's coming in some newsletter, but it's not an official township newsletter about the program, and he's been advertising it. Whipple.
Might be Whipple.
Whipple, yes. So he must have seen it on the website, so that's how most people from Franklin have been coming to me. Once a year, we usually do an article in Chester County Press. It's on my website, and then I do at least 1, sometimes 2 workshops a year. I'm looking at doing one in West Grove, maybe at the library there this year. So that's it, just word of mouth. And we did one with London Grove Open Space Board, inviting me out to one of their meetings and asked me if I would combine with them to do a workshop. So we did one in September of this past year.
It's hard to communicate to people. And whatever you're doing is successful, so.
It is, but you know what, so I get nervous because it's me, and if this program keeps growing, obviously we're going to have to build capacity and bring more funding in. Although some of the people don't even want the rebate, they just want the technical advice. So I will say that. That's why if you look at the budget, we haven't spent very much money, and I didn't put my time on there. But in terms of rebates, a lot of it has been homeowners just
doing projects for their own
Yeah.
interest, right?
Mm-hmm.
Do these count towards MS4 requirements that we're going to talk about shortly, or is it because it's private property versus parks?
So there's no, and correct me if I'm wrong, but there's no, DEP has not recognized this yet, I don't believe, as a way of getting credit, unless we do it collectively and maybe add up the different practices and have a big enough impact. I'm not sure.
I think you can take credit. They do list in their effectiveness table, do list forested buffers as a.
Well, that one, yes, sorry. So that's not, so when you ask me that, I'm thinking residential rain gardens and things like that, but the buffers, yes. Although I do think you can get credit for the rain gardens if they're, I think it's more of, do you want to do the work to figure out the calculations for the reductions on something that's 100 square foot rain garden? I think as there's more, and I will track everything that goes in, then maybe it would be worth going around and calculating it, and then you can take the credit for it.
Right. But it's very, even the credit for a small rain garden has, all depends on the drainage area to the rain garden. If it's only got an acre or two of drainage to it, then it's only a small drop in the bucket to what the township needs for their MS4
And
requirements.
it's not an acre, it's definitely not an acre going to the rain garden. It's really more a part of the roof, you know, maybe 200 square foot of the roof. So, but it's, part of it is, so for me, a lot of this has been education and just talking to homeowners about stormwater and getting them to think about it, and where the water goes, and why it's carrying bad stuff with it, going right to the creek, how it's drinking water for people down in Delaware. And getting them to understand that there is a problem, so that maybe they take action in other ways, support things that are good for the environment, so.
So, you mentioned bamboo, like everyone else, we have a problem with bamboo, including on township property. What's, I mean.
You asked me this last time. You know,
We didn't talk about bamboo last time, did we?
you did ask me this, I know.
We did pass an ordinance on
Yeah.
there about to control it on roadsides.
Well, maybe I read about it then.
Okay, but anyhow, yeah.
documents. I feel like someone asked me, and and so I can put you in contact, maybe with someone at City of Newark who's been dealing with this down there. But from my understanding, the best thing to do is mow it, and then just keep mowing it for like 5 years, which,
Because we need to put that.
pack
in
it down
place.
first, because you'll break them out, gotta get it
Yeah.
down, and then when the soft shoots come up,
Just
mow
keep
it.
mowing.
That's what
Okay.
my neighbor did, and it's working for him.
Great.
So, but it is an issue, although the vines, I think, are worse,
Yeah,
so.
and all the invasives, the pears and the regular pears, it's awful.
But there's a lot of it around. You drive around. you'll
There
see a
is.
lot of
Yeah.
it.
There is, but the vines are killing the trees, and the
Yeah.
mature trees are the best thing we have for stormwater, so in my
That's to
opinion.
Paul's earlier comment, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, you can see it now, especially.
Yeah.
It takes some real determination to get rid of that stuff.
I know. My husband knows.
You're gonna really want to get rid of it.
My husband knows, yeah. Okay. Well, good work.
All right, well, Shane, thank you for coming in. We appreciate the update.
Can we ask you a question?
Go ahead.
Sure.
Just saying, could you repeat again what's available for HOAs when they want to plant trees on some HOA property?
Sure, so this is what I'm gonna tell you what we do for individual homeowners, because I would apply it to HOA land as well. We offer a $2,500 rebate, maximum rebate, or 50% total cost. Now with the HOA lands, because they're on protected lands, we can sometimes get grant funding. So, we ask for the HOAs to do the management and pay for, for instance, the one had phragmites, which we didn't see when we first planned the tree planting. We told them about it. They had weed sink out, and they treated it, and it was early enough batch that it was treatable, and now we're gonna plant. So they paid for that on their own, we don't pay for that, but the tree plantings are coming through a Tree Vitalize grant that Brandywine Conservancy has. And the same grant can apply to private land if it's eased. So we can still get free trees for
So what's the
that.
$2,500 for? If you have 3 trees, then what's the money for?
So, for instance, a homeowner, if they were gonna put a rain garden on their property, it would cover the plants, it can cover design, it can cover a contractor, as long as it gets implemented.
No, this is tree planting.
So like canopy trees,
Yeah.
same thing. So say you put in 10 canopy trees and they cost you, I don't know, $100 a tree, so $1,000. We would pay 500 of that. So 50% of whatever your cost is. And it's agreed upon plan. So
Right.
basically I go out, I do a site visit, I meet with the homeowner, we walk around, and then I put, I get a map like this, and I put the practices on it that we discussed, and I give a little estimate about what it will cost if you do it yourself, because I can't always predict the contractor prices. And so you can get a ballpark idea of how much it costs, and then you go from there, it would be 50% of whatever that is, up to 2,500. So you could do multiple practices to take advantage of that. Does that make, am I answering your question?
Yep,
Okay.
thanks.
Just for everybody's information, a rain garden is not such a simple thing. The plants are highly specialized plants, and they're pretty
They're
expensive.
native though, they're native plants.
It's natives.
They're just native plants. It is simple. I'm gonna say it's pretty simple. It's like a hole in the ground that drains, and you put native plants in there.
Yeah, we
Thing
had
is,
one, we had a scout put in
Yeah.
a really nice demonstration
Yeah.
rain garden out here, and that was a Eagle Scout project. from
Yeah.
How many years ago? 2, 3 years ago?
Four. 15, I think.
Those plants cost us $430, so they were
So the plants So a flat of plants, if you got it from North Creek, is, well, now they have gone up. They used to be more like $50 a flat, they're like $80 a flat.
They were
and
pretty
it'll
pricey,
cover
I was
50
surprised
square
at the
feet.
price of the plants, yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
I
yeah, it
think
just
it's
depends
cheap.
where you buy
I
them.
think they're cheap.
Yeah.
We bought them from a local guy, we bought them from North Creek Grocery.
No, North Creek is the cheapest though. And they were from
Steve
North Creek.
Castellano provided them. So,
That's not a lot.
They attracted a lot of
It's not.
butterflies, so it was a nice.
The hardest part is the weeds.
Yeah,
Getting the
weeding.
weeds out and knowing what's a weed and what's a plant. And that is the hardest part, so, you know.
We don't have to worry about that right now.
No.
So, John, can I make one more comment? I don't know if it's appropriate now for Shane or for your MS4 discussion, which I don't think I'll hang around for, that sounds pretty exciting.
Come on, Paul.
But for minimizing runoff in our township, one of the biggest projects which I wasn't able to tackle as a supervisor is the runoff of the Beechwood Road on the Oak Road, or Oak Lane, I don't remember the name of it.
Beechwood Oak.
Beechwood
That's
Oak.
great, we took
by,
care of that.
Did you divert it to the retention pond?
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's exactly what we did.
Yep.
That project's just, we just finished that last year.
Yeah.
So you guys are ahead of me. That's great.
That was a struggle.
That's
The
a hard
home, the property owner was, eventually, he's happy with it, but it took a while to
Very
get
happy.
convinced to do it. That was a major project. What did we spend on that thing? That was no minor project
That
either.
was at his request too, right?
Not really, we had to,
Yeah, we
No,
didn't do what we
it took
wanted
a
to.
while to convince him that we needed to do it. So, but it was pricey, because there was a lot of pipe involved. and
Yeah, I want to say it was in the $40,000 range.
That's what I
I'd have to
thought.
look it up to be
Good.
certain.
So,
Yeah, we piped it all the way down to the basin, and
but it did, we put it even,
so he's happy, we filled it,
and we had a local resident provide the sluice gate to control the level in there. Really nice, fancy,
Great, he's happy.
homemade stainless steel thing, really high quality stuff.
And you got some
It's a
trees
local
out.
machine shop in town that donated that to us, so that turned out to be a pretty good project.
And you got some trees planted too.
Yeah, the trees
Well,
and
we-
garden were
We
replaced.
wrecked a couple of his trees, so we can replace them, so. Okay,
Thank you, Shane.
okay, thank you.
You're welcome. I'm gonna stick around.
Okay, but if you have to leave, you don't. Thanks.
So, trees okay for half? Or does it have to be like near water?
It does not have to be near water. You know, we want trees everywhere. So again, this program has a lot of flexibility. Now they have to be native trees. I have to come out and do a site visit and walk around. So, but yeah, definitely. Anybody who plants, and they have to be protected from deer. So that would.
So,
You're
wrapping
still
in.
here. Okay, I'm glad that you're getting the deer out of the reserve.
All my neighbors have to say, I just have them like stand guard outside.
They're a problem too for the forestry generating, so
Yeah.
it's good to keep that population down.
Yeah.
All right, I want to start the discussion on this key item here,
MS4,
MS4. I don't want to read the motion yet because I'm not sure that it's advertised. I just want to put an overview on it, then I'm going to ask the engineers to help us understand what this is all about. There's an enormous book of engineering work here. For many years, this MS4 and its potential requirements is kind of hung over the township. And we've never, until recently, ever been asked to do anything definitive or actually cost money. And then sometime last year, I guess it was, the local DEP spent a lot of time with our engineers, I assume you guys were involved in it, explaining how to prepare the permits. And it was not only our engineers, but it was engineers from all the townships. And they prepared the permits in accordance with their requirements and submitted the permits, and the permits did not require the townships to do any physical projects. And shortly after that, they rejected all the permits. And changed some rules, and we had to go back and recalculate. So now we're into some significant costs here, so we have some proposals here. So what I'd like, I just wanted to provide that overview. So what I'd like Pete and Glenn to kind of step us through what we have in the book here, what the options are. We'll kind of interact back and forth with you.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chairman. We prepared I'll say a little 3-page kind of outline. Does everybody have that in front of them?
Yeah, I quickly read that today. Let me see if I got a
Is
high.
that in the packet?
No,
Check your desk.
there's a high.
Stand by. I got it now.
Okay. And this is not meant to be a comprehensive, I'm just trying to highlight so we can spend days.
Yeah,
going over this stuff.
I don't want to get too deep into this thing, but we need a fundamental understanding of it.
Right. So I'm just going to go through, I kind of broke it into some, what I thought were easy things to follow. You obviously can be the judge of that, you can ask any questions. I have Glenn along with, he's been a lot of the, I'll say the lead engineer doing a lot of the physical calculations, painstakingly working with DEP and back and forth to get to this point. So the other things that you were submitted in advance of this, I believe, to take a look at is you have one of these books, it's probably in a binder somewhere, though. It's a TMDL, which we'll talk about. It's the bigger of the two. And then you also have a smaller one that's called a PRP. Okay. So those are the two things that you should have received, I think, in advance of this in your binders. Pretty tough to follow via email. There's large attachments and maps that go with it. That you have at the back of each book, so it'd be very tough to, I think, electronically do, but it was just paper copy, correct, Sharon?
Yes.
All right, so again, I'm just basically going to follow along here. If you have any questions, feel free to stop and ask. MS4 stands for Municipal Separate Storm Sewer System. That's where that comes from. Franklin Township, you have 3 watersheds that we deal with. It's the Chesapeake Bay, which is the Big Elk Creek. You have the Christina River, which is the White Clay Creek. And you also have a small area that drains directly to the Christina River. We don't really have a name for that one. Each of these watersheds is treated differently. The Chesapeake Bay watershed requires what's called this PRP. The Christina requires a TMDL. Again, these are established by DEP with all their rules and guidelines. It's not something that we created or have any input in. The small watershed that drains to the Christina fortunately doesn't require any action because it's so small. So compared to having 3 watersheds and 3 plans, you have 3 watersheds and 2 plans. 2 plans. If that's a positive. The main goal, though there are many of the MS4 projects, is sediment reduction. That's their main goal. There's phosphorus, there's nitrogen, but the way the numbers work is if you address the sediment by default, you're reducing these other 2 categories. You don't actually run numbers on that. So the whole calculations that we go through behind the scenes and the programs that are involved look at sediment only. And we've all seen muddy streams when it rains and things like that. So I'm sure we're all familiar with those type of issues. For this permit cycle, the sediment reduction goals for the PRP are 6,903 pounds a year, and the TMDL is 79,834 pounds. Very precise number, but that's the way the math dumps out. The TMDL area is much larger in watershed than the PRP plan, so there's a different size, of course, for the reductions. Though Franklin is very light, so very rural, and I think you guys would all agree with that. The urbanized area, which dictates a lot of this, which is based on census data, calls you otherwise. On the map that happens to be sitting up there now, what is grayish, which is the whole top portion, and then I'll say going into the bottom half there, that is your urbanized area, what considered by the 2010 census. Unfortunately, we can't really argue with that. As you can imagine, the 2000 census, when this thing first started, it was maybe the top third.
It's a lot smaller.
It was a small area on the west side.
Small in the upper west when we started this. Now, there's a map somewhere we could show you, but Joan has it. So it was a very small area, but the 2010 comes out, and it really covered a lot of the township. Whether you agree with it or not, I don't, but that's what we're stuck with. So that dictates what's urbanized area, what you have to deal with. The various colors are, streams that are attaining have attained or?
Right, the red streams are non-attaining or polluted, and the blue streams are they're attaining or not polluted.
So, and you have those small maps within your book.
Well, some of these streams come into the township non-attained,
Right,
so we're not the only contributor.
right.
And you're working upstream too, you're working with those townships.
Those townships have their own, especially for the northern part of the township, which is in the TMDL area, those townships are also part of the
Working with,
coalition that we're working with the TMDL plan.
okay.
Did these, when you look at the northern townships where, if that is the source of the sediment, it doesn't make sense that if they are the source, we clean it up, their mess hypothetically. And I don't want to get distracted from where you're going, Pete, but have we done anything with regards to, what's that firm out in Kent that does environmental studies?
Stroud?
Yeah, Stroud. Did we do some water testing, or we're going to look at to find the source of the issue as opposed to just accepting
They,
these marching orders?
Well, just a quick one. London Grove Township had engaged Stroud to put some water monitoring systems on their streams. And ultimately, those systems technically work, but the data wasn't useful and the DEP didn't want it, so.
And I was at a seminar a couple months ago, and I was talking to this fellow named Lee Murphy, who works with DEP, their Harrisburg office. And I asked him the question, and it was like, well, how do we account for it? If, say, most of the sediment is coming from upstream municipalities, and really, we could test test where it comes in and test the stream. And I asked him that directly, and he's like, well, that's not really the concern. We want to change the characteristics. We want to improve the quality of the stream that runs through your township. We're not really specifically worried how it gets to how the impairment or the sediment gets to the stream. We're just worried about fixing the stream within your township, and that was sort of how he told me.
And the people downstream from us are going to be complaining about the same thing,
Right.
so it's just one of those. But I have a question for you. So this was the 2010 survey, census. We're going to have a 2020, I guess, coming up.
Sure.
We're going to be working on this for the next 5 years. I mean, luckily we haven't grown much, but let's say we had grown or the rules changed, then we're going to put that on top of this?
Right, and most likely in 2020, urbanized area is going to grow.
Yeah. I mean, luckily we haven't had too much growth, but still, we've had some. So with every, so it's because we're behind the 8 ball already, we're going to have to end up doubling up, probably.
I think they changed the definition of urban.
I think.
Yeah,
Could
that's a big fight.
Could you tell us the definition of sediment? Does that include anything that's not H2O, or is there a certain, because obviously every time it rains, you're going to get dirt out of the ground. Are they looking at certain particles of certain chemicals, or
No, it's sediment. It's basically just
anything that's not
earth
anything-
material.
earth material, anything that's not water?
Right.
Is sediment.
Sediment doesn't include chemicals or anything like that, or dissolved oxygen, nitrogen, phosphorus, or any chemicals from farming or anything like that. It's really just when the farmer goes out there and disturbs the soil, and you get brown runoff with sediment, and that's the sediment. It's earth. It's basically the earth in the ground.
Okay, thank you.
And it's also stormwater volume, though, from the impervious surface, the
Sure.
bank erosion, which is part of the problem.
But you're correct, that as the census data changes and you have to renew your permit after 5 years, then the update will be, well, you gotta go by this year's census data. So we originally started with 2000, until we got to the point since the 2010 came out, then we got stuck having to deal with that. So during this design process, we got hit with the new data.
Gotcha.
Most of
So it's
that
just
growth
endless.
that
Yes.
was picked up in 2010, it was from 2000 to 2010, most of that growth occurred in the early part of the 21st century, probably in the first 5 years.
Oh, yeah, before the
Because
slowdown.
eventually a recession just stopped everything in 2007 and 2008. If you look at our housing growth in the township, we're growing less than 0.5% from
And
2010.
sometimes,
We have a lot of preserved.
2010 to
land and
2017,
all
so
right, and sometimes it's
the growth isn't very high right now.
Right, sometimes it's proximity because you're close to something that you get associated with that growth. Again, it's not yours, and that's
Right.
whether it's
It's
right or
upstream.
wrong.
I think what I'm looking at is when you do the 2020 census, you're not gonna get anywhere near the bump you got from
Hopefully not.
2010.
But again, it's upstream too. The one that's kind of odd to me is the one right in the village, the non-attaining stream. I mean, I guess we own that. Is that because of the village? It's the, you want me to show you? It's the little red, unless I'm reading this wrong. It's right, oh, this is darker here, but I assume this is red.
Yeah, that's not a stream, that's a watershed boundary, actually.
Oh, okay, on my map it's red, so it looks like a
Yeah.
stream. Okay, so that's a boundary.
Should maybe get a bigger color.
So this is phosphorus, and this is sediment, not phosphorus and nitrogen. What happens, it rains, and the water turns dirty because it stirs up mud from the bottom.
Right.
So what happens after it rains and it's, 8 hours later and the water's clear again? Doesn't that sedimentation, if that's a word, fall to the floor? And all we're doing, and we're trying to, like, I don't know, it's like, it's there anyway.
Well, it smothers aquatic habitat, so that's what DEP does their assessment on, like the organisms that are living in the creek. So if they can't find a certain percentage or diversity of organisms, then they determine it's impaired. They're not actually doing it on sediment readings, they're doing it on aquatic.
Right.
So that sediment, it's like finer silts that are running off the land that are burying it. It's not the forces that are normally found in the stream, which the bugs, I'm gonna call them, like to live in. So they're getting smothered. So that's part of it.
Well, some of it carries off outside the boundaries of the township in the water. But one of the issues we have with all this is it's all based on calculations. There are no measurements. Nobody's measuring before.
I'm measuring. I'm so happy to be here.
Good for you.
So I can't say that we're doing a lot on the west branch yet. The east branch is the most impaired. I mean, it's not good. Bacteria is the highest there, nitrogen counts. So far have been highest there, but I haven't done it on the west. But we have we have one site at the bottom of the west branch, which is right under the Franklin line, where we're looking at bacteria. And now we have University of Delaware students who are going to do some nitrogen reads on it as well. to get an
All this
idea.
is based on calculations, not field
Modeling,
measurements.
yes, all modeling, yeah.
The other issue is that we probably can't get into tonight is, are these BMPs really effective? You don't measure them, how do you know?
If they're maintained,
How do you know they're effective? You don't
Yeah.
measure them. And they based it on calculations. I've asked these questions before in other seminars and never get a straight answer, so. All right, guys,
If
go
Paul
on.
were still here, I would compliment him and previous supervisors, because if our township wasn't almost 30% preserved, we would be spending a heck of a lot more money.
Mhm.
So it's easy for us to think preservation doesn't do any good. It does.
It does a lot of good. There's a report coming out that you guys are going to hear about, I think, at Cato, at your meeting.
Yeah.
Is that next Wednesday, you said, which the return on investment on open space.
Yeah, not everyone understands the financial benefits. of
And the dry
preserving
wells
land.
that you require.
Well, we're 32% preserved, so we're
Yeah, but not a farm. Well, we did one farm, but
We're
it's
2%.
former
We're
supervisors.
2% above county target. We're actually.
It's
well
good though.
preserved.
That's good. That's great.
I think so. That's why I'm on the
Farming
board.
practices has a lot to do with, most of the sediment that you can find in the stream in rural areas comes from farms because it's on the soil.
They're scratching the soil.
That's it too.
And it rains, so.
Well, they don't,
Tons of houses don't help, that's for
working
sure.
with
nobody
the-
deep plows anymore, so
Yeah, they've made different practices. They've taken different practices.
everything we plant is with a drill, so we don't scratch the surface very much at all.
You'll see the Ford farm, same thing. So they've changed everyone's trying to do their best, that's for sure.
You'll never get to zero, but the more we do to curb it.
The only way to reduce it is to stop farming.
Oh, no, houses, right?
Put a
Cover crops.
concrete wall around every farm field.
I can
Make
tell you,
sure
there's
the
some
water stays-
supervisors in other townships that think that's the solution, is to build it out.
Yeah, I don't think they understand what they're doing. Doesn't take long to do the math to figure out that's not the answer.
All right, guys, I'm sorry, we're cutting out.
Yeah.
This is your forum, which is quite all right. The last thing is just a background for the Christina River watershed, the white crate. Can we Creek, excuse me, you joined forces with some surrounding municipalities, I forget if it's 5 or 6 in total, to form this White Clay Creek Watershed Association. So we've worked, that had some guidelines established for it, with the theory that there's some benefit in numbers. You would do some maybe projects that could, in one area that benefit others and things like that. So that's a unique aspect there, and Ellen couldn't be here tonight, I guess with the reschedule, but she was going to be here to talk about some efforts directly with that, because she knows a lot of what the other municipalities are doing and their situations. I think generically you're all in the same boat.
And then there's an update meeting for that
March 6th, see you next Wednesday.
next Wednesday, so then for the March meeting, you should have more information.
Yeah, so at least you're at that one?
Yes.
So at least, and are you heading to that
I
one?
can either.
Okay, so Glenn will be at that meeting, we can give an update, a little written summary or whatever information comes out there, we can pass along to the township staff, and you guys can see where everybody stands perhaps too. Where we are today, as I call it, the current effort for this cycle began with mapping stormwater falls in 2016. So behind the board there, we have a map that shows all sorts of where stuff is in the township. So that's just trying to know where you have various detention basins, stormwater features, all sorts of stuff. So tracking that has become important. We try to do better with that. It's an endless cycle because you're always finding stuff from years gone by. The drawings are much different today with electronics and keeping track of things, and all sorts of stormwater agreements that the staff deals with for all the new stuff. So we're getting much better with that. And we made like John had said, we made a current submission to DEP originally. We were trying to take credit for all the stuff that had been built. I think a lot of people tried that. Unfortunately, we got rejected. And I think that is EPA driven, where there was a lot of articles in the newspaper about that, where they felt Pennsylvania was not moving the needle enough, specifically for the Chesapeake. You've probably read some of those articles. So the theory is that EPA put pressure on DEP, and then DEP in turn puts pressure on the locals, and they want something done specifically, and that's where we are today. So since that time, we've spent extensive efforts mapping stormwater things. It's been a moving target. Some definitions have changed. What's an outfall? What we have to do. Joan, I think, has been at several of these seminars. She's heard all this. I think John and some of the other staff have also attended some of these seminars. So we all know that it's a moving target, which makes it tough. But we've tried to do the best we can with what we have at this point. So the plans you see before you, going to page 2, we had a review letter, standing review letter from July 10th. Of 18. So that's what is the genesis for these 2 books. We did try to get a waiver from doing the PRP plan before we had to do it, if I'm not mistaken. That was denied, because we thought we had a pretty small area. We thought it can't hurt to try after discussions with the staff. Unfortunately, that was rejected. So that's why we originally only had a TMDL, a bigger one, but we had to make also the small one.
Yep.
So since that review in July, we've been working extensively with DEP, and it's kind of a back and forth iterative process. We're making our interpretation of what their rules and regulations are. We go back, we have an email confirmation, yes, proceed, and kind of an iterative process. So the attempt of that is the package you have in front of you is something that would be met with approval from DEP. You may not like what's in it, but the methodologies, the calculations, we think are all the way they're currently thinking about it. So that's what it is. We also had to request additional time. The original deadline was the end of 18, roughly.
Yeah, it was 90 days from the July 10th. So, yeah,
So we got some extensions of time, and they realized that, and they were understanding of that, because with rules coming out and things changing interpretations, and they saw our efforts working on it, so they were reasonable and gave us some additional time. So our current time goes till the end of April for this year. We currently put an additional request in for an additional 3 months. That email was sent, we have not heard back yet.
That's per my request.
Right.
Here's just the general overview, is that this is the first time we've presented with something that's going to really cost us money.
Correct.
And I mean, you look at that book, there's a tremendous amount of engineering in that book.
Yep.
So I've gone through it, and you did a nice job of summarizing. I'm going to ask you some more questions.
Sure.
But the board really needs some more time, because we really, costs like this, these are not minor costs, these are major costs. And when we have to do that, that'll come up in our subsequent discussions. The timing is, but these will have a major effect on our budget.
Yep. Agreed. So the current proposals, again, just following along for the TMDL, we list 3 options in here, and we do that in the sense that until we actually get in there and do additional engineering, which is significant cost, we're not exactly sure which one might be the best option for the township. So we want to keep that open so the public, when they look at this, realizes, oh, it could be this, it could be that, and you don't have to go back to the drawing board if you shift gears midstream. So if you're familiar with the Franklin Preserve area, the way the numbers work, and again, I know this is a summary, it's 935 feet of stream restoration in the preserve. The second option, we call it B, is retrofit and remediation of 25 existing detention basins. And again, they're highlighted on that map.
When you talk about retro, what do we need to do, just scrape them out and clean them out, or?
It's a little more than that. There's a BMP manual section, we provided that to Joan. It's the dry extended detention basin thing. I think we shipped that down to you.
With this?
That was the stuff for Jim to look at to get an idea of prices.
Oh, okay.
So, and what that basically, the conventional detention basins, and you know all this, just had flat bottoms and an orifice outlet structure.
Some overflow,
Yes. Right. So now in today's world, to improve the situation, they want to have a 4-bay when the water comes in. So you're holding water back, probably wetland plants in there and things like that. They want you to meander, flow along the bottom, and they want a 4-bay, we'll call it, or an N-bay around the outlet structure, and also amended soils in the bottom of the basin to promote infiltration. So it's totally redoing the bottom of the basin.
This is a major design change in a basin, because the basin right now is a simple hole.
Correct.
To receive the stormwater, and some should infiltrate into the ground.
Correct.
And then there's an overflow here, because it's only designed for a 25-year storm or something, so right over that, it overflows. So that's a pretty simple structure, what you described now, with a 4-bay and an exit bay, and some other channels to move the water through the basin. That's a major piece of process equipment compared to what we have now.
Right, and in addition, I think the challenge becomes, that has to be reestablished. If you get the right rain at the wrong time, it destroys all that basin bottom. Otherwise,
That was where I am right now, is this
Built
stuff
up
seems
area.
fragile.
correct. It's also, do you have to go to the bathroom?
No.
Oh, okay.
We did this in City of Newark, at 3 stormwater basins. We retrofit them back in 2013, and they've been very successful.
They're
And
still
it's-
there?
We just moved the dirt around to do exactly what you said, to form a meandering path. And we planned them with the North Creek plugs with a bunch of volunteers. We had a grant, and it was I think it was about $80,000 for 3 stormwater basins, about an
Okay.
acre in size. I said, I think it's cheap. I'm in the
So
wrong,
basically-
I'm in the wrong room.
The basin-
But it was a grant. We were supposed to get the grant, City of New York put in 20,000, we put in 10, and then we had a grant for about 80. So, but
So we're looking
but it
at
was
25
doable, and it worked.
basins.
So this is a,
Did 3 for 80,000? And we need 25.
Right.
No, all we did was
650,000.
need like a
If we only did
bulldozer to
basins,
move the dirt
that's what
around. And then,
one conversation at a time here, guys.
I have a question. Would that be in line with the stream?
No, what this is doing,
Filtration basin?
yeah, the basin retrofit is taking just the existing detention basins that are scattered around and
I
then
see.
and renovating the bottom,
Sorry,
we'll call
I
it.
got mixed up with what you were talking about before with the stream restoration.
Right.
So
So
I
stream-
I kind of put those two things together and
No problem.
said it didn't make
Now,
sense.
These are basins that were put in to manage, they were the original BMP for the
Yeah,
stormwater
yeah.
for the development. But
It's-
I'm glad you explained that, because I didn't really understand the scope of that work here.
Right, so there's some information, and one of the things that, which I'll jump ahead a little bit, right now, we don't have to do the detailed engineering for that, and we don't have to provide detailed cost to DEP. Now, you may want that information, which the staff is working on, we've given them some information. The other challenge I see with the detention basin option is at 25 locations, you're dealing with 25 property owners be that some may be combined with several HOAs, and access logistics to do that type of work, and Shane, maybe you know how that went. I can see a lot of damage.
No, trust me, that was not, the hardest part was selling it to the homeowners.
Right.
The issue is that each one of these is an engineering project. They're unique. It's
Correct.
You're not gonna come up with a design that fits all. Everyone is a unique situation in terms of its
Right.
configuration as how it applies to the land and how much water it's designed to take through, so.
Right.
And how did you select the 25? Are they the oldest?
Well,
Or
they're
you
what-
haven't, you're just saying 25?
Well, they're what you have, so we had to find them all through Jeff's with
Okay.
plans, other staff, my knowledge of certain things from being in the township for X amount of years, just trying to find how many we have out there that we could use. Your other option would be to build brand new basins. To me, that's a non-starter.
That's a lot of
So what-
earth movement.
So what we looked
There's no
at.
land.
Right.
There's no land for it, so.
Right, that's the problem, because you gotta have, the way these are all driven, and Brent, you'll appreciate this, it's simply an acreage game. It's the basins that you have, what's the drainage area to them, and the math drops out, here's the value you get. So we don't have any input in terms of what's practical, we're putting these numbers, we're on the acreage, and that's it. So he spent a lot of time drainage areas to each basin, and it drops out the number.
Does
Okay, so-
25 basins equal 79,834 pounds?
Yes, it's a strange analysis, but yes.
Does 20 basins equal 79,834?
No.
Okay. So the
It
number,
is actually a little bit, not.
Maybe a little conservative, but.
Right, we found about 25, we just put in 25, it's probably somewhere around, depending on the size of the drainage area to each basin. If you pick a couple more of them that have larger drainage areas, you might be able to get away with like 21, 22 of them or something like that. But if you pick all the ones that have the smallest drainage areas, you would probably have to do.
And we also think some probably, until you do a field inspection, we probably have to disqualify. So we're in the 20 to, we'll say 20-ish range, depending on that size and acreage. So we list 25 right now, but that's all you have. Again, our choices were build new ones, use what you have, or township land. And that's where, in terms of stream restoration, you own the land, so that takes out purchasing easements or new agreements.
Yeah, let's talk a little bit about, I think we got a sense of what you have to do with these basins, which is major
Yes.
design and reconfiguration in my
Yep.
mind. Talk to us a little bit about the stream restoration. Physically, what do you do there?
Well, and anybody who has walked the preserve probably knows that's a heavily eroded stream. So what they're trying to do is have a kind of a small channel with small banks and then overflow and then reforest it. So you go along there and they did it in Parksburg. If you're familiar with that area where the Bell's Light, the ice cream place they just redid, there was a project there recently that they redid and, trying to meander the stream back and forth. So realigning the stream, reforesting once you go through and creating what's it, the bank overflow height, something.
There's a ratio of bank height to
Right.
bank flow height or something like that. You're basically trying to widen out the channel a little bit, and get rid of steep banks, like and so if you have steep bank slopes that are really eroding, you want to kind of lay those slopes back and widen it out to
That's what I see in that one channel. It's a fairly narrow channel, but it's got steep sides
Right.
as it's been eroded. So
Right.
I guess the idea is you want to reduce the velocity and spread this thing out.
Right.
Right, and in some cases where you have a steeper section, you can put riprap in that to kind of step it down. But where you use riprap, unfortunately, you're not, it's great for erosion control, but you're not allowed to take credit for that part. It's just the way they look at the rules. And you also have to have, it's either a first or second order stream. It has to be what we'll call a blue line stream on the map, which we do have in this case, which is good. If it's not on that map, it doesn't work.
Just thinking about the configuration of after you reconfigure one of these streams with the wider banks and some different angles here, it's all soil. So
Right.
what happens when, it's designed around a 25-year storm? What happens when you get a 50 or 100-year storm, 3 years? Is the thing destroyed? Because riprap will resist the configuration change, but the soils won't. So I'm wondering how strong it is.
I've worked on a few stream restorations in Newcastle County, and what they do is it's a different design. Instead of armoring the sides of the banks, they use natural features to slow it down. So what they'll do is they'll design large kind of like piers of very large rock that will go out and create like some eddies and some currents and things like that. And that slows the creek down, and then they'll do natural things like root balls. So you take like the ball of an old tree that got cut down, and you take that big huge root ball and you stick that into the stream, and what it does is it slows and it makes the water go around it. And when it slows down, sediment drops out of it. But that's what they do. It's very different from a normal channel design. You're trying to get the water from A to B without too many maneuvers. This is like do the opposite of what it makes sense to get it through and slow it down.
Yeah.
But that takes a lot of very large equipment to move that stuff in. It's not cheap. It's very expensive to do that kind of work. And then when you're done, you have to reforest everything because I've gone in with these giant machines.
Well, both of these configurations, the basin reconfigurations and the stream restoration, have some design basis for a flow. And when you exceed that flow, then you're potentially subject to damage. Both of these, I think, are subject to that. So that'd be the worry that I have is what's the maintenance of this if you put all this effort into it.
And the literature talks about that when you read, and there's some information we provided to Joan with some stream restoration, and there's some details on that too generically. And it's an iterative process. You design the best you can, and then you need to monitor that, and you may have to go back, and there's one bend that just, though you planned the best, it just didn't work. You have to go back and hit that. But again, you get the right storm at the wrong time, it's tough. I hear you. In that arena.
But don't they say that stream restoration though it's the best value for your money?
Well, what we did is we talked, we consulted with Jan Bowers, right person, for some historical cost data for this information. So we reached out to her. She put us in touch with Brian Winslow from the Randy Wine Red and Clay Alliance. So there's some information. Was that in the packet by chance? Okay. Go over it real quick. So,
You can give us some numbers, because that's what I want to translate this thing into some potential costs and how those costs.
now this was from January of this year, and they've done 18 projects so far. This is again the Randy Wine and Clay Alliance. They're saying the cost can range from a low of $100 a foot up to $200 a foot for stream restoration.
So it's $100 to $200.
Right, he
per-
recommends
per foot
a foot of stream.
Foot of stream.
Correct. So it'd be $1 million a mile.
I think that's a
Flavor take.
That's bigger than both sides of the creek.
Correct. You're doing both sides when you do it with stream restoration. You cannot do just one side by the numbers for DEP. You have to do both.
So 200
So it
times
says
935.
935 feet times 100, is that what I get?
Yeah, so that, well, at the minimum, 10 grand, 10 to maybe 20 grand.
It's $185,000 if you use $200 if you want to be conservative.
Oh, 100.
So Franklin Preserve that you.
That's
double
right,
that
it's almost
number?
100, or 10 to 100,000.
No, not double.
100,000 to 200,000.
The 935 is not double.
Oh, no, we were using 100 feet, $100 a foot. So we use $200 a foot.
Is that $93,000?
No, yeah, times.
Yes.
times
Yeah,
100.
because it's,
But that's the minimum,
That's
because
the
it's
minimum.
100 or 200, up between 100
okay,
and
so this
200.
thing here is somewhere between
100.
90,000 and
No,
180,000, right?
187.
That's the hard part.
That's just hard cost.
Okay, so it's,
When you say that's the hard cost, there's more involved, yeah.
Sure, there's the soft cost. We have to go through all the surveying, somebody with the engineering, there's the permitting angle,
Right.
and all that fun stuff.
Wow.
what is
We're
engineering?
gonna have a budget.
There's a tremendous amount of engineering that goes
Right,
along
and
with
then
it.
like Brandon indicated, it's a specialized type thing. That's just, it's not just,
So, you know, kind of just put, we're not gonna get this tonight, but
No.
I mean, I wanna get a perspective. We've
right.
expended an enormous amount of money on engineering already,
Yes.
on all that other stuff, that these
Right.
books you showed. These
Now-
stuff doesn't come cheap,
No,
that was documentation.
Going back to what Shane said, I like that, where 3 basins were retrofitted. We'll just use that term loosely if that's an acceptable term. I'm hearing $25,000 a basin. Now, I don't know if that,
2013,
right, and that was old dollars. Was there volunteerism in that too to get to that number?
we had volunteers come out 2 days from Bank of America to do the planting, but not the entire planting. We also had a crew do.
Okay, so that number would probably be even higher, so maybe it's $30,000 an average for basin retrofit. And again, very site specific. If that basin's far in, John, what I'm worried about is collateral damage, tracking equipment in and out. and the restoration than just for the access.
The thing I worry about is if we have a major storm,
We're looking at lots of
1 in 100-year
materials,
storm,
lots of money.
and 5 of these
Just a
basins,
big
7 of these
nut
basins
for a
fail.
budget.
Right.
I know it's over 5 years, but still.
And don't you think there'd be some efficiencies gained as opposed to cost being going
$2 million.
25 to 30,000? That if you're contracting this out, you might be able to get a better deal than doing just 3 for doing 25?
Yeah, certainly the bigger the project, the better the numbers.
Yeah.
I think that you would get in now. I believe the township group could probably do a lot of this work.
I mean, somewhere between $1.5 million.
Does it-
Depending what the work is, that's yet to be defined, but a lot of this may be within the realm of what they can do.
And the failure rate for doing
Oh, plus 500.
basin retrofit is probably lower than maybe doing a stream restoration
Yeah.
because you're really only working the bottom basin. You're not really affecting the berm or the spillway or the outlet pipe or anything like that. You might get some muddy water down outletting the pipe or something like out of the basin, but you're not really in fear of berm failure and a catastrophic flood or something like that. You're doing this.
My kind of overall sense is that the stream restoration is more effective.
Well, what I was gonna
And I
say,
think you'd get, than all these basins.
and I'm gonna quote Jan here, that she gave us the reference to the Brian Winslow. She had said she's heard from multiple sources that says stream restoration seems expensive up front, but may result in more removed for dollar after completion, and, you know, that's less expensive than other BMPs. So, again, that's coming from, you know, the group, the bigger groups that do this all the time.
So is it ballpark, if we're gonna take, let's say, the midpoint between the two numbers is 135,000, and let's be conservative, say it's 155, engineering costs and other costs, maybe another 110,000, I mean, is it a number around 275, 300 all in?
No.
No?
Well, you're talking about just the TDML?
Yes.
You have to add the 580K for the retrofit.
It's one or the other.
Yeah.
Oh!
Yeah.
Oh, thank
Yeah,
God.
it's one of the other.
Okay. But the stream is probably the better way to go.
That just seems like.
Oh my gosh, and to get 25 different groups of people to let us dig up their basins.
Well, the other thing is that I just got a sense that they're more fragile than.
And then it would just
than
revert
stream
back over
restoration.
time. Yeah, I would agree.
Well, they'll make you fix it, because you know, you're gonna.
Right, that's what I'm
these
saying.
things, But then there's gonna be an operation and maintenance plan that's gonna force you to maintain it.
Okay.
Will
Yeah,
we be
I think
getting-
A is the way to go. But we're gonna, so do we have to submit this
Yes.
by April 26th? Is that the,
I'm waiting for, I'm asking for a delay, a 3-month
Okay.
delay, because how do we manage this? You've got this enormous cost and funds here.
yeah.
We've got some answers this evening, but by no means is there a clear path forward. So if you commit to a permit right now, we don't have a way of managing it. So,
Right.
I mean, I'm not trying to be hard about it, but I've got to be responsible here financially and say, I need a financial plan to manage this thing.
Well, what happens if the rules change again, though?
I know.
I mean, it
Well,
seems
they
like the
might.
DEP is doing whatever they want on the wind, and then 6 months from now, they say, well, you know, A isn't sufficient anymore, you're gonna need 1,200 feet or whatever.
Right.
From your perspective, you guys are both qualified engineers, are they competent? You're not be able to comment.
Turn the tape off.
All right, I forgot I asked
I'm
that
sure there are
question.
people who are and people who aren't, look at everything.
And I can just sum up here real quick. Similarly, the PRP plan, again, a little bit different, a little bit tougher because we don't have a ton of basins there. There was only 5 existing basins. So there's one private landowner along Peacedale Road that the manager has talked to. So that would be a 155-foot of stream restoration there. And there's an east side or a west side, he has 2 of them. I'm not sure which is the best at this point, access logistics.
Okay.
Oh, so it's
And again, this
A, B,
is
or
one of
C,
the
right?
above.
It's always
Okay, so
one.
that's good
So we
news.
listen A, B, or C, you
Now
pick
we're,
one.
now
Now, do we have to do both of these, the TMD and the PRP?
Yes.
Yes.
So
Okay, so we gotta do both.
So
right, so when you look at a price,
we're
you
up
need,
to about
you pick one option from
350 plus
TMDL
engineering.
and one option from the PRP.
Yeah,
So
so.
we're listing all of them right now, so the public, in case we have to shift gears, and let's say you go through it and say, well, this doesn't work.
So it's about 350. If you take
About
both A's, you're talking about
Yeah.
350, roughly.
Yeah, yep,
And DEP
plus your engineering costs.
I included that, actually. I gave
Oh, when you
120
said the,
I put $120,000 in engineering cost, roughly.
How, this stream restoration, say we looked at this project, this 935 feet. How would you actually construct that thing? Is that done sequentially, a section at a time, or?
Well, you have.
I'm just trying to visualize how you do this.
Well, I think my opinion, and this is just where I would go logistically, is you have to start at the top and work down. So what's our road by the preserve?
First,
Parsons. You've done a little bit of work already because it was so eroded at the end. Jim had gone in a year or two ago and had rip wrapped and done something because it was really
Put a
getting
plunge
bad there.
pool in.
Plunge pool, I think is what it was. We had talked about that years ago. So you pick up there and start working down. I think you could, if the township's doing the work, it's very sequential. You could go and say, well, in year, we need to do design and permitting, and that'll take a year or two. We can save up some funds. And then you say, well, let's do half of it in 1 year and another in year 4 and the next half in year 5. So you could break it up into two, we'll say 500-foot sections,
Yeah.
something like that. It depends. I think you'd engineer the whole thing to start and see how you want to break it down. What's it cost to remobilize? How easy or hard?
which is more efficient.
I'm thinking, just trying to figure out how to go ahead here.
There's two ways I've seen.
Our local contractor's pretty economical. I mean, he does some really nice work for very reasonable prices. So what I'm thinking is, how do I generate a rough scope of work so he can put a high spot number on this thing? His number, not, some historical number. I know you guys got good numbers, but
Right.
generally we beat those.
That's
I
a
think
We
good
do a
we
lot,
bid it out.
we do a lot better.
Right.
Because once we got him involved in our road program, our cost per unit went way down. So
Yeah, but we need to bid it out, don't we, that kind of money?
I don't know. That's
we
the-
have we don't have to because
He's
it's a
a-
contract we have with him.
His prices are bid. His prices.
Every
unit-
project,
unit-
a big project.
Now, he bids on time, labor, and equipment, and that is bid out. So these are unit prices that have been competitively bid, and we evaluate him every year, every 2 years. But yeah, we're competitive,
Well,
his
then let's
prices are
have them give us
competitively
some
bid.
estimates, so we know what we're working
So,
on.
Does this have to be complete within 5 years, or these, okay, so we could do this in year 5?
Yes, I think the construction could occur in year 5, but in terms of you'd have to do the sufficient planning, and then you could wait till year 5. I guess you want to make sure you could get it done.
I'm just wondering if we can start reserving for it, obviously there's gonna be engineering costs
Right.
and all that other stuff, we do have a reserve fund where we put $45,000 a year, hopefully we won't even need to touch that. I mean, if it's $350 and you do, that's $7,000 a year that we'd have to, and then in year 4, you probably have, I'm guessing you're gonna have to about $100,000 up front, or $125,000 in the first 4 years, and the last year, you might have $225 or $250.
This year, we budgeted $150,000 for stormwater, because I knew we have to start something. And the other thing you need to consider, the PRP that we're doing that we think we want to do on Peacedale Road, that has to be done all at one time.
It's
Get
too
in and
small.
get out. Well, no, it's the owner, I mean, it's a
Owner.
private
Yeah.
individual, he's giving us permission to do it. I mean, he doesn't want it drug out, so it's, okay, we designed the way to do it.
The fact that he's giving us permission is a good thing.
Yes.
And I also think at some point, we've spent a lot of money on the road program, and we should be able to start easing off on some of the amount of money we spend on the roads. It's been a top priority for 4 or 5 years
I
now.
think we are, if you look at our road program, we're fixing the roads a bit faster than they're degrading. And the way we gauge that is at the end of the winter, we see what the situation looks like. The other key indicator, which we had for many years, stuff was blowing up on us in the middle of the winter.
Yeah, I'm just saying, you've had some big projects that you
That's-
spent a lot of money on, so it's always good to rethink, is it still the
At some
strategy?
point,
Yeah, we can't, that's true, Nancy, but we're not there yet. We need to, I would say another month.
We need to look this year when Jim gives us gives us the projects that he thinks need to be done. But, it's like with any home budget, we have to make choices.
Plus, we're saving money on the lack of snow.
Yeah, we've been very lucky with
Say that again.
don't say that yet.
Yeah, I jinxed us last year.
March can be
We had a storm in March one year, it cost us $59,000 to clean up, so.
Yeah, and I predicted that.
Never forgot that one.
All right, so what's our next steps here?
Well,
Go ahead.
I just would like to add, because I've done a lot of work in stream restoration and bridge work as well. There's two ways to really perform this work in a stream. And the one way is to put a diversion down the middle and push all the water over to one side while you construct one side, and then you divert it into the side that you finished to work on the other side. The other way to do it is to put a diversion, you actually pump the whole stream. And it gets costly after a while. Those pumps
Yeah,
run
'cause we-
24 hours a
we
day,
do-
they make a lot of noise.
We do that pumping around, we replace pipes and all, usually it's not a long-term thing, it's usually, in days, not,
You
weeks.
don't want it to be a long-term thing, but we're talking about like splitting it out between years and things that they're gonna be completely redoing a diversion, because when they demobilize, they're not gonna let you have anything in the stream, so trying to split it up would be really difficult to do and would probably cost you quite a bit more money, unless it's someone came up with a brilliant plan, someone smarter than me.
So what I heard earlier, Shane was saying when she helped Newark do their retention ponds, they were able to capture some grants.
Yeah, I mean, that's definitely, and that's what we're gonna be talking about a little bit. We're gonna try and do that next
Okay.
Wednesday.
Yeah, good.
Well, it doesn't make sense, like, to use what Brent was saying, which is what I was thinking, maybe you spend the first 4 years, showing progress on engineering and all that, and then you implement, the first one, the smaller one, PRP, that's something we could do next year, the year after, it's probably $50,000, might be a guess. But the bigger one, I would think, kind of do all the engineering, and you wait till see if the rules change on you within the next 4 years, and then you do it in year 5.
My only problem there is that's privately owned land, what we currently have approval to do.
Well,
Versus the
that's a
Franklin.
small one.
That's a
isn't it?
PRP.
That's a small one, you
Yeah,
don't do that in mass, you have to do,
What, that's the 155 feet?
yeah, that's the 155 feet.
Oh, yeah.
You'd have to do that one in.
We gotta
in
do
mass.
That's small enough you would, in terms of footage, to demobilize, you get in, get out. The TMDL is long enough at 1,000 feet, it could be broken up, like Brent said, it's logistical to do that. Hard to know. Now, what's creative, until we get the permit from DEP to do this, where it's a little bit of an unknown and a bit of a guess, but you have enough land to preserve. And some of the literature tells you, when you make this meandering stream, we can totally relocate where that stream goes. You could build that in the dry and then divert it over. So, and leave the forest, some of that going, maybe just fill some of that in, because I hate to take down all the trees that are there for the others. And maybe go in some of the field and plant around it, so maybe that's a way, but that's not up to me, that'll be up to the people that they talk, in order to introduce that meander. I don't want to take down all what I have there.
Because this is a national wild and scenic river, you will need to get federal permission to do any of this. You're in the bed and the banks, and you're talking about.
Now you're into costly permits, that stuff costs.
It's more of a time thing, it's not so much cost, but time with the National Park Service.
And
Okay.
one thing with to keep in mind with the stream restoration, that does require a separate permit from DEP than the MS4 permit. And the basin retrofits, if there's no wetlands in the bottom of these basins, you don't need any permit from DEP to go and do those. You can just really go do those.
So I see at some point you need to foster a little bit of engineering effort on maybe both options and see which one is going to come or bear fruit sooner than the other in terms of permitting times. Because hopefully, you're trying to satisfy DEP. How will permitting come on the backside of this? If we get hit pretty hard on that, we're going to say, we're trying to help this, here's a real problem, but we may get turned in the other direction.
Pete, correct me if I'm wrong, but they can put all of these projects in their permit, and they don't have to implement every one of them.
That's
So you
what-
want to put more in, then, so you don't have to select it on the spot before you submit your permit, correct?
That's our understanding, that we can do that. We want to have flexibility in case if we went out to the public and with only one option.
Or landowner says no.
Correct, and that landowner said no, or something like that, or it turns out we can't get a permit for that. Then we had a plan approved with only one option, and we don't have a fallback. So our position is, we're going in, which we understand we can do with multiple options, and with engineering to follow, and logistics considerations, constructions, cost, access. You then pick the one at a time that will work, and the public has seen them all.
And when we've met with DEP, they're actually recommending, I don't think if you only put in one option for each, the TMDL and the PRP, I don't think they're gonna approve your permit. They want you to provide multiple options in your permit applications for the DMDL and PL. They're telling you need to, in case during the design process, one of them does fall through the cracks and you can't do it. You find something that makes the project not feasible.
Okay.
So the next steps were originally, and I understand this likely wouldn't change, the board would at some point authorize the project to go out for advertising, it has to lay over for 30 days for public comment, and then you would receive those comments. You guys may have some comments on your own, either before, after, or during, that's fine. And then ultimately it gets submitted to DEP, and the goal of that would be we would ultimately get a permit back in hand, and then you have 5 years from then to do, the next hurdle, the multi-hurdle race.
So you wouldn't need another permit for 5 years?
That's good.
That's
Yeah.
I would never believe
They
that.
don't start work within like 3 years.
I don't know if that
I
happens.
haven't heard anything. DEP told me that your permit's gonna run from 2018 to 2023, it's a 5-year permit. Now, we're already, I think it's, yeah.
Because we're at 2019.
But you'll have 5 years to implement your BMPs from the date the permit is approved. So whenever the permit is actually approved, then you'll have 5 years to actually implement, no matter when the permit is
That's
approved.
great. That at least gives us flexibility.
So that's from when the permit is issued, we have this 5-year.
You might actually,
clock, we'll say.
after 2023, you might be starting the next permit cycle, like the next permit application before you finish implementing the BMPs for the last 5-year cycle, but,
Because we've had permits that went in the door, and then it takes 6 months or a year to get the comments back.
So it's taken 18 months since you submitted.
Yeah, so you can see where we are in the.
I hear you, but I'm uncomfortable going ahead with a permit with what we have. Because, I mean, we've got some discussion about how we might do this thing. I just
Correct.
feel like I need a clearer plan of how we're going to go about this. I don't know what it is yet, but I'm just trying to get some time to do that. So I'd like to be a lot more comfortable in how we're going to go about this, even with the options,
Right.
before we stick a permit out there and then get stuck with it.
Are there any other options? We basically have 2 options for each one because C's are combinations, so you have A and B. Are there other townships or other options that make sense as well besides stream restorations and,
Basins.
yeah?
Great question. What,
Yeah, I mean, New Garden has swales all over their permit plan. Now, as far as I know, none of the white clay permits, or pretty much any of the Brandywine Christina permits have been approved yet. There might have been 2 or 3 that have, but not within our watershed. But retrofits are big ones. That's probably the most common, and stream restoration is always on there. Vegetated swales have been on them. But that's pretty much the bulk of it. Buffers, I haven't seen, because I think that's new. That's new this year, correct? The buffer credit? I think it is,
Yeah,
so.
what there is, Steph, in the back of the
PMP Exhibit 11.
Exhibit 11, the PRP, lists a chart. It's NPDS stormwater discharges from small separate stormwater medium effectiveness values. This gives you a list of like 20 or 30 things: building wet ponds, dry detention basins, infiltration swales, filtering runoffs, bioretentions. Goes through this whole list of stuff that you can do. They all have various effectiveness things. So the biggest bang for your buck in terms of sediment, we feel, is the stream restoration, okay? If you compare that to tree planting, you get, it's only 20%. Now again, if you guys want to plant 1 million trees, which I understand is not what you would like to do perhaps, okay, and you need the land to do that on.
But it would be almost, it would be probably between 75,000 and 100,000 trees to get your numbers.
Oh, for goodness.
Yeah.
So there are, just briefly, there are other options. So we've kind of, with the staff, kind of went around, street sweeping hardly does anything for you in moving the needle. So while there are other options, we looked at what land was available, what we have out there. You could always build a brand new basin, which certainly seems much more expensive than where we are in the other areas.
What you could think about, like, if there's any large parking lots that you knew an owner would be willing to maybe convert to permeable paving, you could consider doing something like that, you know.
But again, now you're getting very detailed, but.
Yeah.
Question,
Bioswales, what you call them infiltration swales, they can also serve other purposes. So when you talk about bang for your buck, you're looking at just what you're getting for this, but a lot of our roadways have drainage issues and problems.
Right.
And if you were to construct swales along the roads, that would help your roadways out
Right.
and be a infiltration swale, bioswale at the same time.
Right.
You can be getting two things for the same dollar.
I totally agree with that. The challenge is, it's all driven, correct me if I'm wrong, drainage area to those features.
Right.
So if you don't have, I need significant drainage areas going to something. While we can build all that along all the roads, it would be a very good thing, and probably help a lot of areas, the drainage area won't support it.
Right, for like, to get a 79,000 pounds per year reduction, you know, with a 50% reduction for a vegetated open channel, you're looking, we probably need close to 200 acres of drainage area in the swales just to meet that alone.
I was just trying to get better drainage
I'm not
on some
saying
of the roads.
I'm not
Well, that's a
saying-
different question.
It's not bad
We gotta
that-
separate.
It's not that, it's not bad that, it's one of our options, like to reduce like something else like stream rat, like you knock that 935 down.
Right.
But I just wanted to offer that some of the other options might have other, there might be other reasons for doing those, like.
And there could be there certainly are other options. What we focused on was the big ones, and I think we have some language that may allow us to go back, but it depends how much engineering dollars do you want to invest to trickle down with some options at this point, and then what's the effectiveness of those? Those are decisions the board can make of how to go at it. If we had 200 acres of drainage, I'll just use that number, and a landowner willing, and you could build one basin and it solves your entire problem, well, hey, maybe that's the way to go. But then be
So we
prepared.
probably don't have that, but.
You might, but then you're gonna have to definitely own and maintain that because you're building something new. I doubt the landowner would want to maintain that. So how much, and you know, a lot of your land is preserved, farmed already, so where could those be? So we've worked with the staff a lot to try to narrow down what we have readily available.
So Pete, I guess my ultimate question for you is probably what other people, in terms of, you know much more about this than we do, in terms of all the options, the costs, and the outcomes, do you think that the options you've listed are the most realistic?
I think of all the options that we've considered working with the staff, and the cost data that, again, the Brandon Warren Clay has provided, and again, numbers like, again, I was in a similar ballpark as Shane had mentioned for retrofits. I think those are the best options on the table. The truth will be, can we act, getting the permit approval is one thing, we then have to be able to get that actual permit for whatever it is. So that's another hurdle. Don't know that answer. I don't know that you want to spend $50,000 or $100,000 now to get to that comfort level.
No. No. I think and I don't want to spend a whole lot more money having you come up with a lot more options if you don't think they're going to be any more cost effective or effective, period.
Yeah, I don't think so.
I agree with that. I don't think we need more options. I think we need a clear step-by-step kind of plan so we're comfortable.
So John, the purpose of waiting another month or trying to get DEP to give us another month is to allow
I asked you
us,
for 3 months.
or is to allow us a chance to think about it.
To think this thing out. We made a step change tonight with all the information we got. But that doesn't give us a clear path forward. It gives us a better understanding of each of these things and what it takes to implement. I had no idea what these were about, quite frankly.
One thing that would be helpful for me, and I'd be happy to help Joan or whatever, but is if we can do this for $150 a foot, and hopefully that's conservative because Jim is a good
cost
price. And if it's $935, you're talking roughly $145,000 of costs. I would be curious what would be all-in costs, engineering costs, soft costs, whatever else is involved. And, to get a better sense for how we're going to budget this over the next 5 years.
I'd like to see us vote by next month on whether or not we want to submit this at the end of April. I think the sooner we submit it, the better. From what I'm hearing, we can ask questions, we can get a better idea of costs, but we're not going to necessarily come up with a different submission to the DEP. And like you said, we submit both options. We give ourselves, or the 3 options in the one case, we give ourselves the broadest breadth. But I don't see why we can't hit the end of April deadline if we spend the next month gathering information, discuss it at the March board meeting,
We did advertise, we're still in advertising.
advertise it, okay.
We have to
So
do
it-
that first.
Yeah.
It's possible we could push it, if the extension, let's say, would not be granted. If you'd have to be ready to hit the floor running the day after the March board meeting, you'd have your 30 days and you'd
Why
have,
wouldn't they give us an extension on something this complex and
they should, but I don't control
Anyway,
that.
it's just gonna cost all
They've been
this
giving us
money and
extensions
time.
fairly easily so far, it's just,
So we'll follow up again, we'll let a week go by and we'll follow up. I'm surprised we haven't heard back yet on that. But the problem we have, if we advertise the day after the March meeting, we don't have a 30-day layover till the April
So
meeting.
then we're already,
So if unless you're willing to hold a special meeting, then you could still make the end of April deadline potentially.
Can you give us by the next meeting a breakdown of all the costs, including the $100 to $200 a foot, plus your engineering cost, plus whatever cost might be that you can think of?
You're asking me or Joe?
I guess I'm asking you.
Well,
I mean, what are your,
Did you have about actually going out and surveying?
see, that's-
looking at the streets?
that's what's tough to know what we're gonna get involved with. So I think there's some historic data we have provided from the red plan lines. We have some historic data from Shane of real projects, even though, whether you ballpark 30, 40,000, 40, 50, whatever the
There's other
number is per
recommendations.
basin,
Right.
as an idea, and maybe there is some other information we can gain from people who have done this, from Jan Bowers. You can put all that together, you can budget X percentage for soft costs, and then you have some contingencies on top of that, and then you just kind of, I don't know how much you want to spend to get to that number. Obviously, it can be very broad at this point. To get a final number, you'd have to spend.
I guess I'm thinking more about option A, since we both know what Shane's number is roughly.
Right.
So if it's between $100 and $200 per foot, and what might be engineering costs, even if it's ballpark, so it's either way, it does seem like a better option than
Certainly
option B
cheaper.
from a cost perspective.
Yep.
But before I vote or say anything, I'd like to have an idea of, like, are we talking about $200,000, $200,000? Are we talking about $600,000? I mean, and
The only thing you have to think about tonight, though, is to advertise it, not, it can be changed later,
right.
but if you don't advertise it, you're putting yourself
a month ago.
back.
And why
further.
shouldn't we advertise it?
Why should or shouldn't?
Shouldn't we? What is the downside
it's a
to
no vote for
advertising?
me, so.
Well, when the public takes a look at it, they may have some questions that they're going to ask the board, and I think John wants to be better prepared with a path forward. That's
Yeah.
what I'm hearing.
Well, I think we should just ask Jim to come up with
It's
some
an
numbers.
extremely complex project here to not have a clear way of we're gonna do this. It's really uncomfortable for me.
Has anyone gone out and looked at what's involved at the stream?
Well, Pete's looked at the streets. I mean,
Right, so we think
again,
the stream's a candidate, but again, until I would get a permit from DEP to meet with DEP, run down all those numbers, you don't exactly know what requirements, like Shane said, with what permits may be involved. Again, we're trying to do the right thing here. You could look at that and see all the eroded banks, but DEP may say, no, you gotta do X, Y, Z. It's like, well, it's their bat, their ball, their rules.
Yeah.
That could
Okay,
change
so-
something.
All right,
Mike-
let me
Mike
ask a
just
couple
said-
of questions about some potential derailleurs here. The one on the one on the private land, he's got to give us permission, written permission to do this.
Right.
and he will.
And it's over 5 years, so what if the property changes hands?
Well,
This-
That's why we want to do it now.
Why
Wait a second, then, whether it happened, does his agreement carry over to other property owners?
If we had an easement that lasted that timeframe, then, yeah.
That's what I want to be sure
Once,
that,
because
because
it's harder to
this
sign
property,
contract.
I've heard this thing could be up for sale at times, so I've heard
It
that.
is up for sale.
What is
It
it for
has
sale?
been for a long
Yeah.
time.
Okay. So that would carry on.
It's something that we could design around, so to speak. yeah.
Okay, so
And he
that,
has agreed to sign something.
okay,
Then
so
it
it's
would,
not.
it would last beyond him? That's a different question that I would
It
not
would
sign.
have to, yeah. 'cause that-
Yeah, it would have
that's
to.
the question I'm
You
asking.
would have, basically, you'd have a temporary construction easement for the project, and then we just need to figure out what the time frame is, and have that executed and recorded against his property and.
It's improving his property though, I mean,
I think
he's
so.
looked at it
And
and
I would think
it's all
it's a
eroded,
plus.
so it would improve his
Yeah.
property.
Yeah, but that's just the reason for the sooner we do that, the better. Sooner we get that one done, and that's not a lot of money. Okay, so go ahead, John, you had some other questions.
The other one was just related to the amount of soil you're gonna move around. I'm assuming you're gonna come out with a net plus of material?
Excess?
Excess, yeah.
Sure.
That's what I'm thinking, I just.
Yeah, depending, now again, if, it depends how we cut the cross section through there, but I mean, on the preserve land, there's plenty of area to, build a landscape, burn, plant, do whatever. So I don't think you really.
So you don't see that as a problem with the excess material?
I don't think at the preserve it would be, you wouldn't be hauling it anywhere
Yeah.
chaotic. No.
Okay, yeah, that's the question, okay, you answered it.
The other two things, if I could just interject, I think for long-range planning, I know we're only talking about this cycle, but there's gonna be another round of this.
Mhm. It's
And,
never gonna end.
You know as well as I, that anything could change. The preserve also lends itself, if there's 935 feet this year, or 35, in another 5-year cycle, we can take another 1,000 feet down below that. So this becomes potentially a long-term area, assuming we will still do that. I say that because with the private property owner, what we may want to look at is not just this 155 feet is reserved more for future segments if they come down the line, if that owner is willing.
Yeah.
Just
Good points.
just a thought to look out for long term, and my crystal ball works as good as yours.
Again, it's lucky we own that creek.
I think
The
that's
other,
very
the other
beneficial.
issue is just these two particular areas. What's the potential for bog turtle issue in these? Anybody have any idea whether they're?
Again, where you have to run the pindy clearances and see what you need special studies for.
We don't have any indication one way or another whether that be a problem in these areas.
No, again, that starts to get into some of the hardcore engineering with, running permits and what our extent of work is, and I don't know if they will offer you off-the-cuff decisions without a detailed.
Because those have become major roadblocks that really cost us money.
Correct. And that may steer you then back to detention basins if you hit something that comes back with a study on a stream that forces you in a different direction.
So my 2 cents is I think there's a certain amount of information we can get. I don't think it's going to take months to get that information. I'd like to find out from Jim what it would cost for him to do both sets of projects. I think we're saying the stream restoration is.
That's, I don't know how Jim can do that
That's
without
not
knowing what
Jim.
has to be done.
Well, who would help him? Pete would help him with that.
You'd have to have some kind of a scope of work.
Yeah, but Pete would have to go out and survey it and, right, and
How much do we need for Jim to give us an estimate? Do we just assume worst case 200?
why can't we use the estimates from the people that have done it already?
Yeah, I'm fine with that, because I'm hearing John say he wants.
Yeah.
We're talking about 100 to 200,
Well, they say $1 million a mile,
which is 200 a foot.
$180 if you want to get technical.
Right, so I mean, that's their data from.
Sure, I'm fine with
based on
that.
18 projects.
My point
But
is,
now the basins, if we knew some basins, I mean, Jim could look at those and say, okay, to get my equipment in, that's a little bit,
yeah, but we just had Shane tell us they're basically 25 grand, and that's gonna be way more than the stream restoration. So I just don't wanna get into analysis paralysis. We're not gonna know everything we need to know. However, fair point, we don't want the public saying, how much is this gonna cost, and us have no idea. So we have to have a general idea, but I'd like to keep moving this forward, because right behind this is gonna be the next round of requirements. And so, I think we need to be, we're beyond proactive, I guess, we're reactive, but I think we have to keep going.
I said something to John and Joan before the meeting, and I'll probably get chastised for it, but if this is going to be an ongoing thing, pushed down our throats by DEP, and just think about it, I don't know what I think about it, does it make sense to lower the overall millage for the township and increase this by the same amount that we lowered, even if it's 15 or 20 mills, and Joan was saying that you don't want to have it dedicated towards this, but if you have 80% coverage and not 100%, just so that the taxpayers know that where their money is going is coming from some bureaucratic thing that is beyond our township
Well, I mean, the budget will segregate it.
Well, no one's gonna look at the budget. When they get their tax bill, they see,
Yeah, but I don't want,
Never
I don't
do
think,
that
I don't think you
once
want
either.
to, I don't think you want to segregate a segment of the tax and
Then we're stuck with
you're
that.
stuck with it, exactly. We already have that in a couple of cases, so.
nah,
I see your point.
I just want
But
people
it
to know that
might
this is,
tie our
you
hands a
know,
little bit.
we're not able to, buy a farm or, or do preservation. We can't do a road program because we have $150,000 a year for this.
But that's why they're paying us the big bucks to.
They're gonna-
Stephen, we looked at that based on impervious surface on the property. We were doing calculations on that, and when you look at some of the properties, it's just not
These are major
Yeah,
costs.
fair. I mean, it's,
True,
for
nothing
example,
is fair.
I did it when Penny Shank was on the board,
Yeah.
and Penny would pay more on her property than John would pay on his farm, because he's got all that open space that doesn't have impervious surface. So, I mean, it's tough to try and come up with a,
Well, nothing is really fair. I mean, I pay
You want to
so much in
irritate a lot of
taxes for
people in the
those
township,
kids.
just propose something like that.
Yeah.
That would be an absolute eruption, guaranteed.
Okay, so
So,
what do you want to do, John?
I'm still not ready to go advertise it. I just feel uncomfortable what we have, and I just need some think time on it.
Okay. I would just ask you to be clear on what you need before we advertise it, so we can do that.
To give you an answer right now, I'm not
You
sure.
don't have to do it right now, in the next
I'm
week or
not sure what I
so.
need, because
Yeah.
this is an enormous amount of.
And just to keep in mind is like anytime you, for either the PRP or the TMDL, anytime you change the list of options for proposed BMPs, you have to re-advertise.
You would got it.
So, you don't want to advertise until you have your list of options is.
That's the main reason why I'm with John.
We're gonna have to get this thing out into the public soon, because it's likely gonna affect our military at some point.
You know
You're
the
not
changes.
gonna carve this much money out of the budget, and just
I
take
don't
it
know
from
what the push-
somewhere else.
What is the push? Why
Look,
would we?
they are the
want-
they're the regulatory agencies, and what they say we have to do. Unless you wanna change them
Time
politically.
schedule so tight?
Pardon?
Does it have to be such a tight time schedule?
We're behind.
It's always behind with those folks.
When will we know if we get an extension?
Hopefully within a week.
Okay, so we'll know in a short time whether they
Yes.
give us an extension.
As soon as we hear back, we'll let you know also.
Okay.
So I see a major cost coming up to the township for this thing here, not minor. The other issue we got floating out in front of us is this local police cost that's now being
Yeah.
considered by our governor. As part of his budget planning, he's trying to shift the cost of state police down to the townships. And,
But it seems pretty reasonable.
well, he's asking us to contribute $147,000 a year for police coverage, which we don't pay now.
Wow.
So this is a matter of, well, that's his proposal.
$33.
$33 a head comes to $147,000.
Is it per home or per head?
It's per head. Yeah,
Per capita, right?
it's per capita, yeah. This is their formula. I took it off their website today. So that's,
But, I
if you
mean,
take that, you put that in our budget, and something like this, we're in big trouble.
but we've been worried about this coming, because we've been worried about the local police forces, wanting money.
Well, right now, I don't want to get too much into this thing, but the state police coverage is entirely adequate for our needs right now. And What
It's
they're
free.
trying to do is charge you for something that you're already paying for in state taxes. They're just shifting the cost, they're trying to shift the cost down
All
here.
right.
And then they're gonna
That's a
lower the
different
state
topic.
taxes.
They're just trying to balance their
Yeah, they're
budget
gonna lower
on
state
you.
taxes.
That's happened before. We had the county try to do that many years ago with some 911 tax. We looked at everybody's budget surplus and asked us to contribute the budget surplus, they didn't raise taxes.
Okay,
It's
so
the
we're
same
gonna,
kind of thing.
yeah, so
Anyway,
we're
I'm
gonna
just
find out in
gonna-
a week whether this extension
I just want to put
goes through, and then we'll go from there. That's all.
all right,
I mean, even
gonna
if it's
grind
not
away at this a little bit.
expensive, and if you can add more options, it sounds like there's no downside to that, but if it's gonna
I'm
cost us.
satisfied, Nancy, I'm satisfied with the options. I just don't have a comfortable feeling to have implemented.
Shady, did you look to see if there were any other stream options besides Franklin? I know why you chose the Franklin Preserve one because it's municipal land, but did you look at any other options? I'm saying that from the lens of National Park Service. All those mature trees there, you talked about taking out. We just reviewed a project in Newcastle County, and it was not given a permit. It was actually the Corps of Engineers who gave it X-nay before National Park Service because of the mature trees, and they didn't feel like the benefit of redoing the stream would outweigh the cost of taking out all those trees. So, I'm throwing that out there because if you have, I think stream restoration is good in the right place. I'm familiar, but not as familiar with how the banks look with the preserve because we do all the maintenance, I think, right? We do most of the maintenance there for the tree planting because we did the tree planting. I'm just thinking, I think there could be other options possible that where you would get the permit to do it. I'm not sure that would happen there, but I'm not the person who decides that. The National Park Service and Army Corps of Engineers would come out and look.
So I think if it's not in there, the language obviously would have to state, there could be other stream candidates.
Yes.
Yeah,
Okay.
maybe leave
You're
that
just
in.
stating the length.
Right, there's a length of stream restoration.
And we have like almost 3,000 feet of just that stream in Franklin Preserve. We could slide up and down the stream really just to pick the best spots that don't have the least amount of mature trees.
And in that situation, my idea, if I read the literature right, and I could meander the stream in the non-wooded area and abandon the stream in the woods, well, then I don't cut down any tree.
It's almost all wooded.
Yeah, I don't think National Park Service would go for that unless it was really
It's almost all
necessary.
wooded, that
Like,
stream.
No, it's not.
Right, in Franklin Preserve?
No.
Really?
Sounds like a low growth,
That upper section, I mean, you and I were out there, that first 1,000 feet, now when you get down lower below the gas line,
it is.
you're heavily wooded down there.
That's where I am, just so you know.
We're on the
I'm not
top,
sure
we're in the
where
top
it's at.
section right now.
Okay.
We're above the gas line where it cuts across. So that, I think, is
That's
a lot
good.
more,
That's
there's a
heavily
lot of
eroded.
open land there.
Open is good, open is good.
Oh, heavily, no, big time.
Okay.
I mean, that was noted on the Conservancy sketch of that area from years ago, too.
Is that four acres? Is that,
So the
The
question
other-
again
the other-
becomes, how many landowners do we approach?
All right, the other issue we didn't talk about, I don't want to get too far, but we had entered into this arrangement with those other two ladies that come in here, Ellen and Ellen. And we put $2,000 into some sort of a plan where we would share these costs with other townships. So I'm just wondering where that comes in here. Do we share any of these costs right here? Do they get shared with anybody else?
I'm gonna say probably not, because your load isn't as big as, I don't think it's as big as you think it is, because the other townships have loads around that, and they feel that they can do the
but
projects
we put
within.
$2,000 into this plan
Yeah.
with the expectation that we might get some relief here.
No, so what
Maybe I
the
don't want to
$2,000 helped you with was getting the calculations and the new mapping and the loading rates and things like that, plus the engineers are all talking to each other.
Well,
We could collaborate on O&M. The problem is, some of you with your original permits came in and said you didn't have to do anything. The two that did have to do something, it was small enough that they wanted to do it within their own boundaries.
This thing is so changeable. And I'll tell you, I'm
So-
having a real hard time with what's going on here.
Yeah.
I'm not sure we want to continue with this other arrangement. It doesn't provide any benefit to us.
Well, and that's something you do need, and that's something you should think about. If you want to opt out of being in the collaborative group, you can totally do that.
I may, we need to find out what the potential benefit is now.
Grants. Grants, working collaboratively, sharing equipment, like certain townships have their own staff, so.
Well, I'm
But you're not even
expecting,
at implementation
I'm expecting
yet.
it to pay dividends, and you're telling me that it won't, so.
Oh, no, I think it will.
Okay.
I mean, our streams need some help, projects need to go in the ground, they're just not getting in yet.
All right, I need to
So,
talk to those folks again,
Yeah.
so I better understand.
Ellen
We
will
might
give you
get
better
out of it.
understanding.
is this the section we're looking at? So here's
Yeah.
Churchill Road, here's 841. There's Creek Road. So,
Well, Franklin Preserve is, no, it's not. No, it's not.
Goodwin is above it.
oh, this is Goodwin, I'm
Goodwin's
thinking
above it.
of.
Yeah, it's way down here. so it's-
Franklin Preserve's next to the park.
It's the, it's a
Oh,
very piece right next to
right,
the park.
right.
It's a long
Well,
rectangle.
Goodwin looks pretty,
It's
yeah.
swampland.
but Goodwin's not in the right watershed, I guess.
You and me, Donna, and Sarah walking down the time.
Goodman's pretty bad.
If somebody else owned it, would be better.
Well, the farmer downstream, there's a farmer there that could do some work. I don't know how amenable he would be, but he owns a lot of the property around
That's,
there.
That's Jay Brown.
Hawkins, is it Hawkins?
No, it's Jay Brown.
It's Jay Brown, yeah.
I've been told he's not somebody living there, so.
He's
but
not
it would be
particularly
fine.
approachable, no.
Yeah, that stream right near the road, you keep pointing out.
Yeah, I know. Prime
Okay.
candidate for stream restoration.
All right, so we're gonna grind away on this a little bit.
Okay.
Hopefully in the next couple of weeks I'll have something.
Oh, yeah, Jay Brown's stream, that's right.
All right, but I'm not ready to.
So Pete, did you look at Goodwin Preserve?
I guess we did, but
No, what we talking about that, why
It
did
seems
he
so
pull that out?
easy to, and so exposed.
We did talk about, I don't know, why did we pull that out?
is it the one with the big street?
Yes,
Yeah, that's
it's
not,
very wide.
yeah, I think,
And we only have to go on one
The road on the other side is up pretty high, right?
Oh, well, just maybe take another look.
we gotta get a memory bank.
Yeah, it's hard to guess right off the
We did talk about it.
It's right next to the park.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This is good.
Right.
Nancy wants to
So-
say,
Well, a good one, you have a ton of trees already planted, if I'm not mistaken, that snake has, or what do you call
Yes.
it, park or
Yeah.
one.
And that's Franklin.
Right, I always forget about
That,
that.
that stream is way too big.
Okay,
This is
too much
pipeline.
water flow?
Yeah, that's not a first or second order stream,
Oh,
that's
okay.
like probably a river by their category, so it would not be a candidate for stream
So you want
restoration.
smaller streams?
Correct, and that goes
Okay.
all more to the point of you don't want to flood out, when that, just the construction of that alone would be
Thanks.
challenging, that's 40, 50 feet wide there, that's big.
Okay. And that comes from Jay Brown's?
There's a tributary, so
Yeah.
it comes down into the.
Yeah. Okay.
It's always a finger there.
Particularly also.
So you don't want it too big.
This is
Different from, what is this?
No, that would be too big.
Well, that's what I just heard now
Yeah.
with Goodwin, so I'm like,
And we
I was
ruled
thinking it
out,
was a different
we
one.
ruled out Banshire because of that's being the scenic trout stream, didn't want to touch that at all.
Right,
The honey and
right.
everything else.
Right.
What's this one back here?
What's next, Chris?
White, you only own one side of it,
Yeah.
and there's no road to get down to it.
Okay.
So access
Okay.
logistics there were tough, so
You looked at
again, all
everything.
this is kind of behind the scenes, working with the staff to kind of rule out where we could
See,
go.
access to this.
It is good for us to know, because people are gonna ask.
Right.
Franklin Preserve is probably pretty accessible, both sides.
I think so. Well, we own,
We own the park.
Because, well, there's a stream in the park too, but that's on the right-hand side where it's all wooded. That
Yeah,
would
We
be
own
very
all the
difficult
land
to get
there, so
down.
we don't need to get
Where
any
Franklin
permission to
Preserve is
access.
open, the top half is open.
Gotcha, yep, okay.
So,
I mean, it may take some political pressure at some point to say, hey, we own this land, we can do something here, there's an obvious problem, can you help us? It may take something like that to help get through some of these regulations.
I don't know.
You can't rule anything off the table, just like any project, I mean, this is serious project.
This is serious stuff. This is the
Okay.
first time that we've really been presented with some real costs, so that's the word. I think the other issue we probably need to wrestle with is how we're gonna finance this stuff. If you don't, and they're not minor impacts on the budget. Okay, well, I appreciate it. I'm sorry we kind of run you through a knothole, but
No,
it took us a while to get at least the fundamental understanding. I think you did a pretty good job of
Thank you.
understanding, you know, what stream restoration is and what basin restoration is, so.
Thanks, guys.
All right, well, I appreciate it.
Okay.
There's any more discussion, I don't think. Anybody got any? I think we beat this up pretty well.
So, we're just going to set aside the motion?
Yes.
Okay, motion.
Yeah, I'm not gonna- For me, it'd be a no vote. You can, you don't have to vote on the vote.
I would vote no as well.
Tie vote, so you vote. Okay,
So we're down to alternative energy.
Josh, is there anything else you would need from us?
no, I don't think so. You guys got ways to go. Why don't you,
I appreciate that.
get on your,
Okay.
you won't hurt my feelings if you do.
Okay. Thank you again. Thank you for your time. Good
All
night.
right, thank you, Glenn.
Thank you. Good night, Wayne.
See you. Oh, yeah.
We're on this alternative energy thing. And I'll kind of rough it out, and then Joan, you can upgrade it. I think our zoning officer, Jeff Robles, became aware of some issues with these large energy farms.
Thank you. It's nice to meet you.
Somebody
Good night.
sets up a great big array of solar panels on a large piece of land. And he looked at our ordinances, and we really don't have anything that regulates it. So he's asking you, as a board, want to consider regulating these installations. My kind of feeling, just looking at it, and I did read the ordinances, that I really don't want to regulate it. I'm not sure it's really that harmful to us. And politically, I'm not too anxious to be fussing with alternative energy projects, which are the contemporary thing to do right now. So that's kind of my feeling on it, but we certainly can get involved in some more detailed discussions. I can tell you that there is a project being planned to use these. The proposed new high school up on Sunnyside Road is proposing a significant amount of solar panel arrays in an open area to manage their energy. So we do have one in the area. We have the smaller energy recovery systems. We have about 15 solar installations in the township. These are rooftop or backyard installation. I think there's 2 wind turbines, or 1.
The Paradox has some, I think they're the only ones we've heard. They have 2 of them, but they're the only ones that have.
We haven't regulated them in any way. We've allowed them.
No, I would allow the solar panels also.
It's custom, I think it falls into as a customary accessory or something along those lines. So we have some, but these ordinances are related to larger facilities. So I don't know, does anybody have concerns about somebody building one of these things and we don't regulate it?
What's interesting is Sharon took a call from someone else today wanting to build a solar farm and wanted to talk to Jeff Vogel. So there is a little bit of interest.
I can think of one thing, and there's probably data on this. Has there ever been a incidence where someone was blinded by the reflection?
That's a problem, and
I can tell you,
our regulations, you can't have it reflect on somebody in a negative way. That's something.
Well, when the sun is going down and when the sun's coming up, I mean, I've been there myself. There are times when I have to come to a stop on a road because the sun glare is so immense. Like on a clear morning, this time of year especially.
Oh, yeah,
The
yeah.
sun's just breaking over the edge and it blinds you. And and I can tell you, I know I've driven past some of these solar farms where you get a reflection. Now, I haven't ever seen it to the level myself where it was blinding. But is there any data that shows that people have been?
I know if you go fly into Sacramento, right alongside the airport property, there's a solar farm.
Sacramento, California.
Yeah, the airport. I
And,
said, oh,
and the pilots haven't come flying out,
no,
diving the airplane.
it's parallel to the runways, but, it's off the property, but it's close enough that,
I think Jeff told me that
I would think they would face away from the airport.
that's one of the
They said-
requirements for any of these home installations, so that not reflecting some neighbor's property.
Yeah, didn't we have an issue here 2 or 3 years ago, a neighbor complaining about it, or was that a fact?
Too
They
close.
didn't want it too close to their, they
Yeah.
wanted,
Yeah.
Well, there was a problem, they just.
They were
didn't-
fighting over
they didn't-
it.
Right, you certainly can't have it out at the edge of your property if it's blocking somebody's view to get out of the driveway or something.
No, it was just, one neighbor put it in, and the neighbors next door just didn't like the looks of
They
it.
just didn't like
They
it.
didn't like it, so, but
They
they
blocked
were
their
not
view.
successful.
I doesn't.
Yeah.
So my 2 cents is, when George and I talked about it, I'm very concerned about the pipelines, and they're continuing to build pipelines. So there is no free lunch when it comes to energy. We are in a rural area, so I think there's not as much, for me, I don't find it compelling to come up with a ton of regulations. As long as we have checks and balances, and it sounds like we do already, I'm not interested in putting another regulation in.
Neither am I. It's costly too.
It's costly.
To produce them, it's costly.
The only thing, I mean, I guess, you know, solar panels today are more efficient than they were 20 years ago. The amount of, whatever, what are those things called?
Voltage?
Kilowatt hours?
Yeah, but it's like basically,
Oh,
the wafers or whatever.
Right.
Yeah, the percentage that they produce is
The
increased.
shingles.
It's a lot
and-
higher,
yeah.
right,
It's
so.
getting better and better.
So if you own 40 acres and you want to make it commercial, the probability of this becoming more of an issue 5 years from now versus 10 years ago is going to be more. And then the other question I have too is, could somebody put up a wind turbine and put like 3 of them? I read the other ones with regards to minimum acreage. And then like have this thing be 30 feet in the air. Do we have any requirements that something cannot be that tall in the township?
We have a
Besides
height, we have a height
height
requirement for
35 feet,
buildings,
yeah.
but I don't know, I don't know if the ordinance for
Yeah, I mean,
antennas or anything like
In
that.
normal circumstances, if it was just a residence, and you wanted to have a wind turbine, I would think that the standard height provisions, which is usually 35 feet in residential districts, would apply. Now, if it was a farm structure or an agricultural structure, sometimes there is an exemption for that.
If
So
we have
it
silos
goes
in our
beyond
tire.
silos and barns. If someone could claim that it was an agricultural structure, you get something much larger.
And most smaller ones need to be upwards of 40 feet to
You're looking at very tall structures.
to get a steady flow of wind that's not
Yeah.
interrupted by a tree or butch hedge rows.
I think that the two things I would add would be, I'm aware of a case in another township where in a residential neighborhood, a homeowner put up a fairly substantial array. There were 2 arrays, and they were probably at least 25 feet tall, facing the neighbor's property. And because of the way the sun was, the reflection literally came right into the person's living room. And they couldn't even sit in the living room for a large portion of the day.
That's what I'm afraid of.
They complained to the township. Township did not have any regulations regarding it, but had general nuisance regulations. They worked the situation out with the neighbor, were able to convince, with, I guess, some strongly worded letters and the possibility. The individual who had the arrays did move them, adjust them, but they're fairly substantial. So that was a nuisance issue. Some of the ordinances do kind of protect against that to a certain extent.
I think Jeff Vogel's told me that our ordinance, he can control that so that it doesn't reflect in another neighbor's property.
Yeah, maybe from a nuisance perspective, I don't know.
I'd have to look, we could probably ask him how that's controlled.
Yeah, if
Because I
he
think
feels-
that is controlled.
Yeah, but there's nothing specific for solar panels, so I mean, it would be just as a nuisance.
And if there were the general regulations concerning structures, like in the front yard, if someone wanted to put it in the front yard,
Yeah, that was.
assuming that would apply as well.
They're not allowed to put them in the front yard, apparently.
Yeah, if you wanted to put a shed in the front yard, you probably have an issue with that. So
Right.
this would just be the same thing.
But this is residential. This isn't commercial. If somebody went to buy a 50-acre lot and sell, and put a bunch of solar panels and sell the electricity back to Pico, they could do that, right?
Well, there's kind of a dichotomy here. We've got the accessory to residential, which without any specific regulation, I think it would be, someone could easily argue that it is permitted, and we have permitted the ones that utilize most of the energy, sell a little bit back. If someone wanted to have, a commercial or industrial facility, and we didn't have anywhere in the township where that would be permitted, then we'd be looking at the potential for, a challenge to the ordinance, or us to say that we're a special use. I don't know if there's anywhere where there's a concern. I have a township I represent that has a very large hillside, and they're concerned about someone, south-facing hillside, someone doing that, but.
Well, not as cheechy, I don't think, as some of the townships that, you know. I mean, we're rural, and so, to me, I mean, there's things that I don't like to see. I'd rather not see the compost facility, but that's, don't, you know, I mean, it's just, I don't know that we can control everything.
It might be controlled by the HOA too.
HOA's probably,
I'm still, after hearing all the discussion, I'm still a no on an ordinance, so.
I don't think there's a need.
I just don't want to do another ordinance, right, I mean, I just don't
We
see.
can always do it in the future.
Right, you
If
can
it
come back
turns
and
out-
revisit it.
As I said, Jeff Vogels came to me and said, I've been approached, you know, someone called and wanted to talk about a solar farm, we don't have an ordinance, you know, so that's why I brought it to the board to see if there's anything.
My hope would be-
My question was, well, can't we do something about the pipelines, and I was told we can't control those.
Their program manages all that stuff.
Because apparently there are going to be 12 more pipelines in Chester
If
County.
you think about the pipelines, there are necessary facilities. If the townships had control over them, they'd never build
It'd be
anything.
it, right. I just wish they were safer. But, you know, they're what they are right now. That's a different topic.
That's a whole other story. All right, so we're not gonna do that, right? So that's a consensus?
Yeah.
All right, we got one more motion, then we're done, and we got anybody want to read this last
I'll take
motion?
it.
Go ahead.
I make a motion that the Board of Supervisors adopt Resolution 2019-07, endorsing landscape 3 of the Chester County Comprehensive Plan. Seconded by.
I'll second it.
Okay, discussion?
This is their plan, they've been working on it for a real long time.
Yeah.
I don't have any objections to the plan, I've talked to Brian O'Leary a number of times, he comes to our CATO meetings. And it doesn't seem to have any negative effect on us, so
I agree.
I'm okay with it.
I have a 10-page handout I want to go over with everybody on this.
All right, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say nay. Motion carries, board member, say aye.
All right.
We've lost most of the public.
Public comment?
Thanks for staying. I don't know if you're the public or not, Paul, but thanks for staying.
All right, so the meeting is adjourned at 9:25.